It is day one for the students entering the strongest academy in the world. The prestigious World Union Academy. Thousands of elite young talents applied. But only a select few made the cut. To open the ceremony, they summon the top-ranked freshman swordsman to speak. His name is Leon. Hart, a prodigy who defeated his proctor in seconds. Rumor has it he already swings a blade at instructor level. Everyone expects the usual basic thank you speech. Instead, the blonde rookie completely flips the script, declaring that someone in this very crowd does not deserve to wear their uniform. He claims one student did not actually earn his spot like the rest, failing to even beat his examiner but somehow getting accepted anyway. A red-haired instructor bypassed the rules using a special loophole called the Divine Eye Admission. In Leon's eyes, this is totally rigged. He calls him a backdoor student and demands this mystery guy stand right up and surrender his uniform. The catch is the academy only identifies applicants by numbers, so nobody has a clue who he means. Except the target himself. Our main character, Gray, is sweating bullets right now. Right then, Ariel, the teacher who admitted him, decides she has had enough. She teleports right in front of Leon, confronting him directly. She asks if he really thinks he is stronger than her recruit. He hesitates, but with everyone watching, his massive pride takes over. He boasts that of course he is, since he ranked first, so she immediately offers a bet. Both boys must hunt down the exact same target. If her recruit fails, every Divine Eye student gets expelled. And she resigns immediately. If Leon loses, he becomes her personal errand boy. The target she chooses is an Ogre General, a literal disaster-level threat. That controls hundreds of beasts, a foe even veterans would avoid. Leon complains that this task is impossible for any first-year student. So she grants them 1 full year to make it even easier. If neither kills the target by then, Leon wins automatically. To him, this is an easy win. He signs the contract immediately, thinking he just secured a free victory, but here is the catch. Gray already slaughtered an Ogre General weeks before school even started. The bet was practically over before Leon even spoke. Gray looks across, catching Ariel giving him a subtle signal to keep quiet. So he plays along, but Leon's downfall is only just beginning. During their very first magic class, the instructor notices Gray looking bored and drags him up front to demonstrate the most basic spell. The Ether Bullet, having heard rumors about this special recruit. The teacher exposes his identity and decides to stage a quick, friendly duel against Leon, who is now absolutely itching for a fight. The entire class watches in anticipation. Leon glares at Gray like his lucky day has finally arrived, thrilled to humiliate the backdoor student. Right in front of the whole class, this is a simple one-on-one magic duel. Using basic spells making it safe, both contestants power up, but when they fire, Gray immediately proves that he is on an entirely different level. Blondie's attack is completely dwarfed, both of them just stare at this strange mass of energy. The instructor sprints forward to cast a saving barrier, but the sphere cracks right through it anyway, blowing up half of the classroom, shaking the students in the back rows and sending the academy's top swordsman flying backward like a rag doll. The bully came to humiliate the new kid and nearly left in a body bag. Talk about instant karma. When the smoke clears, the teacher admits that without that barrier, Blondie would be dead, but Gray is totally clueless. As far as he knows, he has zero talent for magic. Now the shocked instructor can only wonder, who is this kid? To understand that, we have to look at his past life. Gray was once a foot soldier, 15 years in the future, when a terrifying entity called the Liquidator appeared out of nowhere and wiped out an entire continent. No warning, no demands, absolutely nothing. So humanity assembled their strongest survivors into one desperate last stand. Bella, an elite archmage whose magic equals a whole army. Jacob, a legendary marksman who drops dragons with a single arrow. Yummy, a swordswoman so broken that calling her human feels like an insult. And then there was Gray, a support unit. His entire job was distracting the enemy, taking orders, and dying before any of the real heroes did. On the day of the final battle, he charges through a chaotic storm of enemy attacks, believing this is the moment, kill this monster, and humanity is finally free. Then an energy beam rips right through his chest, leaving a gaping hole where his heart once beat. He falls to his knees, but dying is not even the worst part of this nightmare. All around him lie hundreds of bodies, elite warriors who trained their entire lives, left behind their families, and followed these legendary figures into the final slaughter, only to die without changing a single thing. At least the true champions are still standing. Yummy actually manages to reach the liquidator and slash him. For the first time in history, the monster that destroyed a continent is bleeding. But when the entity notices its own blood, two blinding flashes of light erupt. Yummy and every legendary warrior humanity had left are erased in seconds. Gray closes his eyes and waits for death, but it never comes. His pain fades and the wound in his chest begins healing on its own. Suddenly, a mysterious voice inside his mind says it has finally found him. In the next instant, he is pulled into a vast, silent void. He assumes this is the afterlife until he turns around to face a massive, mysterious, horned entity. The figure tells him he is not only alive, but his fatal wounds are completely gone. The strangest part is when Gray asks if this creature saved his life. The giant replies that he did nothing. Gray actually healed himself using his own latent power. Still, he cannot fully explain how, because even he does not know the limits of the boy's potential, but he is sure of one thing. If Gray can master this force, he will grow vastly stronger than the liquidator. Even then, victory is not guaranteed, and he is unsure if Gray can truly save the world. But this cosmic being wants that monster dead just as badly, so he will help. Then he suddenly stabs Gray through the chest once more, sending him back with a fraction of his own dark power. Moment later, our hero wakes back up in the absolute chaos of the battlefield, quickly noticing that his broken blade is engulfed in a strange, pitch-black aura. He assumes it comes from the godlike being, but the voice inside his head quickly corrects him. His power is invisible. That dark shroud belongs entirely to Gray. Without a second of hesitation, without waiting even a moment, Gray leaps forward and slices a deep cut across his opponent's chest. The enemy stumbles back, shocked to find someone still standing who is actually worth fighting. Gray feels a surge of excitement. He can finally hurt this guy. He presses on. He is somehow stronger than before, than the monster he once feared so much. But the liquidator coldly warns him not to underestimate his power before unleashing a brutal slash that cuts the main warrior in half, spraying blood everywhere. Confident he has won, he turns his back, even praising Gray for making him use his full power. But then, mixed with the blood, and this gets wild, a strange dark mist pours out of his lifeless body. It forms a terrifying silhouette of pure shadow. Like a living nightmare, the liquidator simply cannot believe his own eyes, and immediately throws up a powerful defensive barrier around his body. He can watch the shadow form shift back into Gray, yet he still cannot comprehend how this kid could possibly be human. Gray simply stares back, grabs his blade, and unleashes a strike so incredibly powerful that the collision against the shield sends a violent shockwave ripping through the area. But the real shock comes moments later, when the barrier shatters entirely and the blade drives straight into the liquidator's chest. Blood splatters, and he desperately asks if Gray is even human. Gray quietly replies that he is starting to wonder the exact same thing. The shocked enemy cannot process how he stands alive. Gray simply notes that the power gap is rapidly closing, and they are only getting started. His foe believes he can simply crush him over and over until he finally breaks, except Gray makes it incredibly difficult, lunging forward to land the opening strike. This wound is much deeper, leaving the liquidator screaming out in absolute agony. but he still has some dirty tricks left, activating a skill that bends the space around them. Suddenly, darkness falls, a cold moon appears overhead, and he whispers just 3 words. Time is up, but Gray is not about to get shaken by a cheap parlor trick. He strikes hard, aiming directly for the opponent's neck only to discover that every inch of the liquidator is completely protected by an invisible barrier. Smiling, the smug villain makes it clear that fighting back is entirely useless. Within this domain, nothing can harm him. He tells Gray to stop struggling and instead take a look at the stars. That sounds pretty ridiculous until Gray looks up and instantly slips into a deep trance. This is the real trap. What seemed like a distant star suddenly plummets toward him at unbelievable speed, crashing down with a devastating explosion. Once the dust finally clears, massive crater is left with absolutely no sign of our hero. The liquidator mocks him, saying nobody can survive being completely vaporized, but that smug attitude is his fatal mistake, because those floating ashes begin swirling into a giant magic circle. Suddenly, a booming voice suggests utilizing the leftover energy from this blast to send the boy back where he belongs. That grand voice, without a doubt, belongs to the powerful deity from before. The liquidator instantly recognizes the god Kronos, but Kronos completely ignores him to focus on Gray, offering to use his divine power to transport him straight into the past, without the stunned liquidator being able to do anything at all to stop it. The regression spell activates, and Gray is sent back with a mission heavier than his own life, the ultimate fate of the world. In the blink of an eye, our protagonist opens his eyes and realizes he is no longer standing on that brutal battlefield, but on a peaceful hill just outside Renato, his hometown, which was destined for absolute destruction. 15 years later, this means those final words were not a hallucination. It was no hallucination. He really did fight that liquidator one-on-one. And he truly returned to the past. Luckily, he spots a familiar wound right on his arm, proving he has traveled back to those painful years. He was bullied by Velder, who used to torment Manuel, just thinking of him. Facing Velder again makes Gray shake. He feels so weak, it is almost unbelievable. He almost thinks his entire battle with the Destroyer was a mere dream. And his only goal now is getting stronger to survive, but heading home. That bastard blocks his path, saying he was looking for him, then tosses a sword toward him, demanding a quick sparring match. Gray knows Velder is serious. Dead serious, even though Gray tries to refuse, claiming his injury is fresh. Velder keeps pushing. He charges straight at our protagonist with his blade drawn, shouting that if Gray will not fight back, he will take these hits unarmed. Right to his face. At that moment, a crucial memory flashes before Gray. He recalls a military doctor warning him his soul would never fully recover. All because of a childhood injury. This moment was the start of his misery. But if he is back now, he has a golden chance to rewrite history. So he begins dodging Velder's strikes. Shockingly, they are unbelievably slow. His moves are incredibly basic. Was Velder always this incredibly weak? No, Gray realizes the truth. The only thing that changed is himself. He has become faster. The crowd watches in absolute disbelief as he moves. He picks up the sword, finally realizing this is definitely not a dream. He traveled back without his old power, but with something far more valuable. The battle-hardened instincts of a lifetime, worth more than any natural talent. It shows instantly when a single, precise slash is enough to drop Velder to the ground. For a second, Gray hesitates to crush someone so weak. But that hesitation vanishes as he remembers the endless years of torment. He completely disarms Velder, forcing the sword right out of his hand. And then he strikes, giving him a taste of his own medicine, unleashing the exact same brutal beating Velder had planned for him. He slices Velder's chest wide open, leaving the bully frozen in agony. Velder never expected his victim to actually strike back like this. The crowd is stunned too. That training sword is supposed to be blunt. If that blade were sharp, Velder would be a dead man right now. Gray looks down, wondering if he should show mercy, but he deserves this. This bully has earned every bit of it, so Gray steps in again and shatters his teeth with one brutal blow, telling him not to whine. Since he was the one who wanted to fight, utterly panicked, Velder screams for his cowardly lackeys to stop watching and jump Gray all at once. They hesitate but figure their sheer numbers will guarantee an easy victory. Even when Gray warns them to back off, the idiots charge ahead. Within seconds, all four of them are kneeling in absolute defeat. Right in front of him, it is pathetic. Gray wonders how he was ever afraid of total losers like these guys. What he really wants to know is where they learned to fight. That is when he finds out they trained at Saria's Grima dojo but quit because they thought they were already strong enough at first. That makes the place sound like a total joke, but it could still help him. So, since he needs a recommendation to enter, he tells them to introduce him to the master. Velder tries to refuse, but Gray suggests they keep going with their little sparring match. That shuts him up fast, and the idiot leads the way. Asking why he suddenly cares about the place, Gray says it is the only way he can enter the academy. One of them innocently says he is already strong enough and does not need it, but Gray only thinks about how even the strongest warriors in the world could not beat the liquidator, so this is no time to relax. He does not even know how strong he needs to become. The only thing he knows for sure is that the dark power that covered his body was not enough, at least not fully. Still, there were moments when, while controlling it, he felt real power in his hands. That only happened when he tried copying the Grima technique, so he cannot help wondering if the battle would have ended differently if he had reached the level of someone like Kronos. Maybe Kronos sent him back for exactly this. With that mind, they arrive at the dojo where the master, a blue-eyed woman named Saria, personally steps in to beat down the bullies for trying to use their skills against a civilian, then throws them out. She says trash like them never even deserve to be part of her dojo, but she does not stop there. She is so honorable that she quickly kneels before Gray, offering an apology. She says she wants to write him a recommendation letter to make sure he gets into the academy. First, though, she needs to test his ability, so she faces him and is genuinely surprised when Gray charges at her with a sharp, practical technique that is far too polished for someone his age. That is when it becomes obvious why Velder and the others never stood a chance. Even if his style is mostly self-taught, it has the shape of a true rough diamond. That excites her. And even though she wants to keep this match going, it is time to end it. So she starts pressing much harder, planning to disarm him with a couple of quick thrusts. The strange part is that even after raising the intensity by several levels, Gray keeps answering solidly and matching her pace, even as she pushes harder and harder until Saria realizes she is using her full power. It went from a test to a real struggle just to keep him from surpassing her. At that point, she truly starts to feel afraid of him, and then Gray throws out a direct, wild strike that Saria barely manages to dodge. She admits that happened because of the fear she felt earlier. She tells herself she was not being overwhelmed, her instincts were just speaking. Now she thinks she has found an opening and can beat him. Certain she can finish the fight, she attacks only to realize she was completely wrong, because out of nowhere, the sword she was supposed to use to win suddenly breaks. Gray realizes it was a small release of the same power that awakened in his fight with the liquidator. In other words, he has not lost it completely, but there is a suddenly his body starts violently shaking, and he collapses straight to his knees. His physical frame simply cannot keep up. He has to struggle just to stand back up. This makes him realize he has to use this overwhelming power with extreme caution. He considers telling Zarya, but quickly drops the idea since she would never believe him. So he just plays it cool, claiming he got a bit carried away. But Zarya is far from stupid. She knows cutting clean through a wooden sword is impossible, especially when using another completely blunt wooden weapon, and even though she is sure he noticed the anomaly too, she decides to respect his silence. Instead, she makes one thing very clear: she has officially confirmed his talent. She offers a recommendation to the best academy in the entire kingdom. That would be the Royal Fencing Academy, but she actually advises against it. She thinks he is not suited for it, making Gray believe he lacks strength. He assumes his skills are just too weak, but Zarya quickly cuts him off. The real destination she has in mind is the legendary Academy of Eskrima. This is not just some local school, we are talking about the absolute best in the world. Gray knows it well as the birthplace of legendary heroes. The idea sounds completely impossible. Zarya agrees it is impossible for him right now because of his physical limits. His raw swordsmanship is far too advanced for his weak, untrained body. At this rate, he will never pass the brutal entrance exam. He knows she is right, that place is reserved for true superhumans. But she is not telling him this to make him quit. He still has 9 months. Though time is incredibly tight, she is fully willing to train him. But he has to prepare himself for absolute agony. Gray does not hesitate. He begs her to completely rebuild him from the ground up over the coming months. Zarya loves that attitude, get ready, because things are about to get brutal. And with that, his personal hell begins as we skip forward 8 full months. She pushes him to the absolute limit, but where there is pain, there are results. His physical frame completely transforms, packing on layers of serious, lean muscle. Eventually, Zarya admits she has taught him everything she knows. He is free to go, but Gray is worried since a full month remains. She insists he should head out early to get comfortable with the exam venue. To help him out, she hands over a hefty bag of travel money for food. Despite her extreme generosity, Gray finds this sudden departure incredibly suspicious. It almost feels like she is desperately trying to kick him out of the village. She tells him he is just overthinking things until he drops a truth bomb. He mentions hearing rumors about a dangerous ogre nest discovered nearby. Zarya immediately tries to play dumb, claiming Capitol guards will handle it. But the sheer panic on her face completely betrays her. Gray sees right through the lie. Besides, he already knows the tragic future. No help is ever coming. The village will be utterly wiped out, and she will die fighting the monster. So he stops pushing and pretends to accept her explanation for now. She smiles in relief and wishes him luck, but the peace does not last long. Weeks later, she is stealthily heading deep into the forest toward the nest. Suddenly, a voice rings out from the canopy above, asking where she is going. It is none other than Gray, who has been quietly shadowing her the entire time. He stays completely silent, utterly refusing to let history repeat itself. Zarya immediately demands to know why he is here, but Gray tells her that is his question. Since she was the one claiming capital forces would handle these ogres, she explains they got delayed by far more urgent matters, so she decided to deal with the beast threat alone, confidently telling him not to worry. Since even if the boss is elite tier and 50 monsters guard the nest, it is nothing she cannot handle. Technically she is right, and Gray knows. She is strong enough to manage. What she fails to consider is the ogres. True strength actually lies in its sharp intellect, so even if Gray never learned how they slaughtered Zarya in his past life, he knows she will not make it out of here alive. That is why he begs her to let him join, as in quick excuse. He claims it is the perfect way to get combat experience, asking if she honestly expects him to be a burden. She responds that she would never assume that, having recognized long ago that his power already eclipses her own. But the trouble is that active dungeons are far too unpredictable and incredibly risky for a fighter lacking real-world experience, regardless of his sheer force. But Gray is so desperate that he draws his blade, threatening to knock her unconscious right here. Just to storm ahead and tackle the boss alone, That bold threat finally breaks her. She agrees to let him join the raid, but only on one condition. He must promise her one thing: no matter how bad things get, he has to survive. Even if that means abandoning her to die, Gray agrees, demanding she make the exact same vow. With their dark pact sealed, they advance stealthily, soon reaching the ogre lair. Looking closely, they spot only a single way in and out, which means escaping will be nearly impossible once the fighting begins. Gray quietly warns her that they must be extremely cautious. These monsters chose their home wisely, but Zarya is already analyzing the terrain, plotting their next move. It seems like the leader is resting inside the central tent, so they must silently reduce the enemy ranks before the chief notices. Their best strategy is to split up and strike individually. Branching off, they rely on absolute surprise to start taking down target after target in the shadows. Soon, the nesting ogres realize they are under attack and push back with brute force. Yet, the tactical advantage stays with our heroes, who swiftly massacre nearly every last guard. In the middle of the bloodbath, Zarya admits he is doing incredibly well, asking if this is truly his first real war zone, but Gray ignores the praise, cold and focused, telling her to stay alert. The real fight begins now. He keeps silent, but an eerie feeling gnaws at him. Something is incredibly wrong. These minor beasts are far too weak. If they somehow managed to kill Zarya and her squad in his past life, then the monster hiding inside that tent must be an absolute nightmare. Suddenly, a terrifying sensation hits him as a pair of cold eyes lock onto him from the darkness. His body screams in pure panic, causing Voltator to roar at Zarya that she needs to run immediately. Of course, she is utterly confused by his sudden panic, but when Gray bellows at her to shut up and flee, she finally bolts, sprinting as fast as possible. But it is already far too late. With a devastating crash, the giant boss lands right beside them, confirming their absolute worst nightmare: a massive elite class ogre, ready to unleash havoc. They manage to defeat the beast, but the real nightmare starts when Gray warns that this creature is not the boss. Suddenly, the beast roars out a warning, answered by hundreds of other monsters. A second wave of enemies, just as powerful as the first, comes charging in. In other words, that elite ogre is not the boss. It is just a single soldier among hundreds of beasts led by something far worse. Standing in the distance, they spot the massive general, a monster they absolutely cannot handle. Alone, Zarya desperately insists they must focus on breaking through the line and escaping immediately before things get worse. But even though she lands a solid hit on the first foe, it heals instantly. The monster regenerates as if nothing ever happened. Amidst the chaos, Gray explains that the general's powerful roar can amplify both the strength and regeneration of its forces, meaning they need a new strategy. Suddenly, the young hero tells her to cover his back. She does not have to do anything complicated, just buy him enough time to slay that bastard, and that is when the real clash begins. To reach the general, they must push through a wall of elite monsters so incredibly powerful that a single exchange of blows completely shatters Gray's sword into useless fragments. His confidence begins to fade fast, even though he quickly draws his spare blade. He knows it is only a matter of time before it breaks. Luckily, Zarya notices and tosses him her own backup weapon, hoping it will buy him a few more precious moments, but he must use it with absolute care, so Gray focuses on positioning himself smartly, making every strike damage as many targets as possible. It works briefly, but soon the monsters focus entirely on him. Soon, they surround him from every single side. Then the giant general roars, a deafening, devastating sound. To his shock, it makes them even stronger. The monsters enter blind, bloodthirsty frenzy as they charge straight ahead with only one target in mind, which is Gray. The general has clearly seen through him. But giving up is out of the question. Gray pushes forward harder, trying to avoid direct clashes and slide past them, but the beasts are too fast. The moment they realize he is trying to bypass their defensive line, they lunge directly at his back, tackling him and pinning him down to the ground. They want to exhaust his strength before he can reach their commander. In the chaos, an ogre delivers a crushing blow. Gray blocks, but his sword instantly shatters into tiny pieces. He takes a massive impact, leaving him with just a single weapon remaining. He cannot help but think of his original life before he traveled back in time, all those brutal memories. That taught him a harsh lesson. In a desperate spot like this, he cannot win. He is so certain of defeat that he screams at Zarya to run and escape while the enemy forces are focused on him. But the brave woman refuses to abandon him. Gray demands to know if she really wants to throw her life away in a useless sacrifice. Sadly, Zarya's reply is far more heartbreaking than he could have imagined. She is not refusing to run, she physically cannot. Her leg is severely injured, no options left. Gray looks at this and realizes how incredibly ironic the whole situation is. He came back in time to defeat the boss, but with his last blade shattered, it is pretty clear that this timeline is ending even faster, way faster, but right. Then Gray remembers he is not done yet. Dying for absolutely nothing is a terrible option. He has to risk that weird power from before. The last time he tapped into that force, even for a few seconds, it almost killed him, but things have changed. His body is stronger. He tries to focus on the exact sensation from before, shuts his eyes, and risks everything on the very next second. It works instantly as a dark, dormant force suddenly awakens within him. In a flash, his blade is wrapped in thick dark energy. It is so intense that one casual swing obliterates every monster nearby. The expression on Sarah's face turns to pure shock. He just smiles, reassuring her that everything will be fine from now on. That kicks off the hunt because the Ogre General is too stunned to react, breaking the hold over his allies. The white-haired boy seizes his chance to wipe out the troublesome foe. Soon, only the two of them are left standing over the corpses of the monsters. Standing over the slain general, Gray apologizes to Sarah for breaking her precious sword. Honestly, she does not care at all since he literally just saved her life. But before she can ask about his terrifying power, Gray collapses out cold, completely drained, or so she thinks. Deep inside his own mind, the young warrior opens his eyes in the middle of nowhere, an endless black void containing nothing but a massive, sealed door. Heavy waves of dark energy seep from the cracks. It is the exact same power he felt during the fight. He realizes that opening it might grant him absolute control over this insane ability. It sounds tempting, but the moment he steps forward, a wave of suffocating, murderous intent freezes him right where he stands. He does not hesitate to retreat. He knows with complete certainty that if he opens that door right now, he will die. Even worse, the very moment he realizes this, a chilling, disembodied voice whispers that he made the right choice. Thankfully, Gray suddenly snaps awake back in the village clinic, with Sarah sitting right beside him. He feels like he was out for just a brief moment. But she tells him he has been asleep for 5 entire days. She admits she thought he was gone for good. Gray calmly says he just pushed himself a bit too far. But Sarah doubts that, even begins to cover the crazy stunt he pulled off. All of that with just a few quick sword swings. But right now, what matters is he is safe. She asks if he can stand up, but that hope is crushed instantly. Gray realizes he does not even have the strength to budge his right arm. Surprisingly, that is not even the most worrying part, since he spots a dark, spreading stain underneath his bandages, yet Sarah cannot even perceive it. To her, his arm is just badly bruised, but he actually cannot feel any pain because she gave him a rare recovery potion. That is when everything stops mattering. Gray knows those potions cost a real fortune and is too shocked to speak. Sarah explains it was actually a present from the village chief as thanks for saving their lives. He is totally confused by this. But right then, the old chief enters the clinic and reassures him that this is the absolute least they could do. After all, Gray saved their entire village from being burned to ashes. Gray immediately calls him out for exaggerating, but the man insists he is dead serious. Gray knows better than anyone that an ogre general is not something fighters from a tiny backwater village could ever handle. And yet, in the other timeline, that is exactly what happened. If he had not stepped in, Saria, the chief, and everyone there would have been slaughtered within hours. But now, another problem looms. Between the battles, the weeks passed since he told Saria he was leaving, and the time he spent unconscious. Only 2 days remain before the World Union Academy entrance exam. It is normally a 3-day journey, but if he rides out on horseback immediately, he might just make it. He asks the chief for a horse, promising to pay him back later, but the old man already anticipated this. He has already prepared the finest stallion in the village for him. Saria even jokes that if he had stayed asleep, she would have carried him there herself. With everything set, Gray prepares to depart, but get this, he is not leaving quietly. A massive surprise waits for him the second he opens the clinic door. The entire village is waiting to send him off with cheers, banners, and endless gratitude, presenting him with a pouch of money collected for his academy fees. Gray thanks them all, even though he admits the pressure is starting to mount. Saria tells him not to worry, she knows his strength better than anyone. No other regular applicant can claim they single-handedly took down an ogre general. Sure, with his right arm heavily bandaged, he might not fight at full strength. But Gray insists his left arm is plenty, and he will not need that bizarre power again. The evaluators are not blind, they will recognize his raw talent. There is no way they overlook someone this gifted. He is going to pass. With that silent promise, Gray sets off, riding hard. If he could rewrite destiny here, then perhaps the entire dark future ahead can actually be changed. Next, we cut straight to the bustling entrance exams of the World Union. The speaker announces that all applicants must remain in the central arena. Gray is instantly stunned by the sheer crowd size, hundreds of hopefuls stand gathered, though usually only about 20 are selected annually. Rumors whisper that some years only a single candidate passes, then Ariel steps forward as the chief evaluator. With a single snap of her fingers, tickets rain down. Each slip displays a simple candidate number, the only detail that matters. This academy ignores gender, age, background, lineage, or wealth. Status is worthless here. The only thing they measure is raw, unadulterated talent. Ariel openly notes that some even pass using completely fake names. But what startles Gray is how she knows his combat specialty without his sword. Reading the confusion in his eyes, Ariel casually explains the process. She assigned their specialized courses purely by observing how they carry themselves. Her piercing gaze suggests she possesses some incredibly high-level appraisal skill to back it up. If she got it wrong, they can raise their hand. Everyone thinks it is insane, assuming she did prior research, but no one raises a hand. After that, she announces that their tickets also reveal one final detail: the date and time of their evaluation. Gray is scheduled for 11 tomorrow morning, which is a bit of a problem because part of him hoped to buy time. His injured arm would get some extra time to recover, but Ariel makes it clear there will be absolutely no delays, and anyone turning up even a minute late gets immediately disqualified. Morning arrives, and Gray instantly realizes his arm has not healed a single bit. He is forced to fight using only his non-dominant hand, a handicap that makes him hesitate, but as the line moves and only one candidate remains before him, he reminds himself there is still a way to win. The best move now is to carefully analyze the sword examiner, if this test is supposed to mimic a real battle with one of the academy's top swordsmen, then flashy moves will not save him. The examiner lets the next challenger take the first swing, but even though the massive strike hits hard enough to shatter the stone floor, the examiner easily dodges. and casually slips his blade right against the challenger's chest, proving the match is already done, yet the stubborn warrior refuses to yield and strikes again, only for the examiner to parry that massive weapon with a blade half its size, disarming him in a heartbeat, and just like that, the fight is over. Watching from the sidelines, Gray knows he is in serious trouble, but then his turn arrives. He steps forward, wondering how on earth he can beat someone that powerful. He just watched a giant get disarmed in seconds. Still, the examiner offers the opening move and Gray steps in, recalling a crucial lesson from Zira's grueling training. A real sword is not swung with just the arms, it requires the whole body. So, even with a broken arm, he can channel power through his entire core. This lets him unleash a remarkably heavy blow. Granted, it is not quite as devastating as his normal strikes, but it is fast enough to force the instructor to block, and then, to Gray's utter amazement, the incoming blade seems to glide in slow motion, not because the examiner is slow, but because compared to Zira's terrifying speed, the man is simply no match. That sudden realization sends Gray's confidence straight through the roof. He instantly presses the attack, unleashing quick, calculated strikes that push the examiner back. Proving Zira was absolutely right. He might actually pass this, but it will not be easy. The longer they clash, the more Gray realizes that reading his opponent is not enough. The examiner is incredibly strong, and there is no way to break his guard. Using only a left hand, worse, the examiner is starting to feel the pressure, and his counterattacks are becoming incredibly aggressive. That forces Gray to make a massive gamble. He deliberately gives up his dominant positioning for just a brief moment, tricking the examiner into believing he has found a major opening to deliver a final, decisive strike. But that bait is exactly what Gray wanted. The examiner overcommits, exposing his flank, and Gray instantly slips behind his back to launch a fatal thrust. It is a perfect winning move, or it would have been, if a sudden voice had not shouted stop, making Gray freeze in his tracks. He looks around, utterly confused, right when things were getting genuinely exciting. Then, the main judge declares that their time has officially run out. Under these rules, the only possible result is a flat draw. Naturally, Gray immediately fears the worst. To him, passing the exam required a clear victory over the evaluator, so he leaves the arena completely devastated, muttering to himself that at least he gave it everything. He is already preparing himself to retake the entire entrance test next year, confident he will easily crush it once his body is back to full strength. A full week passes by before the academy evaluators gather to discuss the evaluators gather to compare notes, looking completely worn out. Grading everyone one by one is brutal, but that is the rule. They discuss every single candidate. First up is the sword course. Naturally, the clear standouts are the ones who actually beat their examiner. But they also factor in combat strategy and survival time, specifically during that 15-minute limit, but one strict judge wants higher standards. He believes only those who one should pass, with almost no exceptions. Unfortunately, Gray is not on that list, and nobody defends his performance. It feels completely over, until a sudden question breaks the silence. Someone asks about candidate 513, which is Gray's number. But here is the twist: the one advocating for him is Ariel herself. She insists he has massive potential, but the other judges immediately push back. They argue that relying on cheap tricks means he is not fit for them. Sure, they admit his technique is solid, but tricks do not make a warrior. He lacks raw power and spent the entire test just getting overwhelmed. To them, he is useless, but that statement only makes Ariel laugh. With so many expert eyes watching, she finds their blindness hilarious. None of them notice that crucial detail, but the debate cuts off there. The next morning, the official results for the sword course are posted. Only 6 candidates have been accepted into the sword course. Number 5, 217, 432, 615, 753, and 925. Gray waits, but they make it clear that is the entire list. Only those 6 get to cross the bridge and finalize enrollment. Everyone else must leave, except for one special choice by the divine eye. Candidate 513, look at that, Gray's token suddenly ignites in blue fire. Shock and jealousy ripple through the crowd as eyes lock onto him. A divine eye recommendation is an incredibly rare, legendary honor. Gray has no idea what that means, but the bitter whispers start instantly. They whisper that it is just a backdoor pass for spoiled rich kids. That makes zero sense to Gray, since he has absolutely no connections. Syria might know someone, he thinks, until an old man barks at them to shut up. He declares that this honorable selection path has birthed legendary heroes for centuries. The crowd scoffs, arguing that the title is completely dead these days. They point out recent failures admitted this way: Jacob, Bella, and Yummy. These 3 are known as the Academy's biggest failures. But Gray recognizes those names. They might look weak now, but they will be key fighters later. Future powerhouses against the Liquidator. Either way, the main thing is he got in. Next up, we head straight to the grand entrance ceremony. Gray and the other passing rookies collect their files and gather at the plaza. They stand in front of the main office, but something feels off. There is absolutely nothing there, and they wonder if they came to the wrong place. An assistant finally shows up, explaining there is a slight scheduling delay. A minor mix-up disrupted the prep work, looking at the bare ground. The students expect a long wait, but the guide just tells them to stand back. In an instant, the ground lights up with blinding energy. Dozens of magic circles expand, brilliant light glows, a coliseum forms. Take a seat, any seat, the instructor smiles warmly as he says it. The students head inside completely stunned. This is far from ordinary magic. No standard spell, teleporting massive objects. Even Gray is left totally speechless. He realized this is a ridiculously flashy way to cast such magic. And yet, it only gets him more excited about the Academy's power. However, a student nearby points out a strange detail Gray missed. There are simply far too many seats for only 30 accepted students. His classmate quickly explains that the Academy gathers top talent from everywhere. To understand, he simply needs to look up, because dragons and airships are arriving. Once again, the young student has absolutely no idea what he is seeing. But Gray recognizes those massive vessels immediately as the legendary Strat Queen airships. These are the biggest and most expensive magical aircraft in existence right now. It is mind-blowing that they casually use them just to transport students. The entrance ceremony is not just for the freshmen, but for everyone else. Those extra seats actually belong to the older students currently arriving. When everyone gets settled, the assistant announces the start of the ceremony. It quickly turns incredibly boring, with a dry speech almost putting Gray to sleep. He only snaps awake when they begin introducing the top-class students. A confident blonde boy standing nearby gets called up. The talented Leon Hart appears. He is the absolute strongest swordsman who defeated his examiner within seconds. Whispers say his sword skills already rival those of the Academy teachers. He immediately grabs Gray's attention by boldly asking the faculty to speak freely. They agree, completely unaware that Leon Hart is about to criticize the Academy. He starts by saying it is an honor to stand here with everyone. But then he sharply claims that one specific person does not belong here. To make his point, he turns to Ariel of the Divine Eye and asks if she knows. Ariel looks completely caught off guard by his sudden and aggressive questioning. She calmly replies that every single student passed strict testing to earn their spot. She demands to know what exactly he is trying to imply with this. Leon Hart boldly states that everyone deserves to be here except one backdoor student. He refers to the kid who got in through the special divine eye loophole. Pressing on, Leon Hart loudly demands that this mystery student step forward right now. He wants him to hand over his uniform, clearly targeting Gray. Luckily, since everyone is identified by numbers, nobody knows who he actually is. Ariel attempts to deflect the tension, but the stubborn swordsman refuses to back down. She suddenly teleports right in front of his face, wearing a deeply unsettling expression. In a chilling voice, she asks if he truly believes he is the stronger one. Leonhardt flinches in fear, freezing up completely before slowly regaining his composure. He confidently claims he is the best, prompting Ariel to make things interesting. Oh boy, she proposes a high-stakes wager with two major things on the line. The wager will cost the other boys admission and her own teaching position. Gray completely freezes up, knowing he never agreed to any of this madness. Leonhardt asks if they expect a fight, but Ariel quickly rejects the idea. She notes that if Gray got serious, Leonhardt would not survive the clash. The air immediately turns icy as Leonhardt demands to know if she is. Insulting him, but Ariel makes it crystal clear she meant every word. Instead, they will duel by hunting beasts to keep the match clean. She even hints that Leonhardt is far better at fighting monsters than humans. What exactly she implies remains unclear, but Leonhardt accepts the challenge anyway. Ariel immediately lays down the rules. They must each slay a designated beast. With each round, the targets will grow stronger, scaling up the danger. The first to fail loses. If Gray fails, Ariel will resign her post. And every single special admission student will be kicked out immediately. However, if Leonhardt loses, he must submit to her absolute authority. Before signing, he demands to know the targets to avoid any traps. This is where things get bizarre as Ariel pauses, pretending to contemplate. Then asks how he would feel about slaying a massive ogre general. Such a specific target is no coincidence, making Gray wonder what she knows. Leonhardt immediately protests, arguing that no regular student could ever defeat that beast. Alone, Ariel calmly counters by making it a long-term wager instead. They have until the end of the term to defeat the threat. Leonhardt still believes it is impossible against a disaster-level threat. Defeating such a monster within a single year of training seems completely absurd. He suspects Ariel intentionally chose an unbeatable creature to force a draw. But then Ariel adds another twist. In the event of a tie, Leonhardt wins. He is guaranteed safety, but if Gray fails to defeat the boss, Ariel and all the special admission students will still face instant expulsion. Her supreme confidence makes Leonhardt deeply uneasy, signaling a hidden trap. To seal the deal, Ariel presents a formal magic contract right there. It contains all the terms, leaving the final choice in his hands. Shockingly, Leonhardt agrees and signs, mockingly asking if she expects the boy to win. The red-haired professor offers no reply, simply returning to her seat in silence. This silent response only convinces the crowd that she has completely lost her mind. They whisper that this is a crazy retirement stunt. Meanwhile, Gray is incredibly anxious. Until he recalls her exact words and realizes the golden loophole. That 1-year limit includes the very same Ogre General he already eliminated. His suspicion is confirmed when Ariel glances over, giving him a quiet hand signal. She silently tells him to stay quiet, confirming the wager is already won. The scene shifts straight to the introductory magic lecture, where the professor begins. She introduces the core concept of an invisible force called ether. By drawing precise magic circles, humans can channel this power for combat. Sitting in the back, Gray is relieved that none of this is new. He thoroughly mastered these exact basics during his intense past life training. Unfortunately, his real trouble is Leonhardt, who shares every single lecture with him. Gray must keep his identity hidden from the rival who deeply loathes him. Keeping a low profile proves impossible when the instructor suddenly notices him. Seeing his detached expression, she bluntly orders him to step up front. She wants him to demonstrate casting, prompting Gray to quickly speak up. He points out this is a swordsmanship class, but she immediately counters. The students still need the basics to cooperate with actual mages. That immediately reminds Gray of the exact same lesson from back at the training camp, so he takes a gamble and asks if the magic they are practicing is the ether bullet. Surprisingly, he is right. On the money, but celebrating is cut short because the moment the teacher notices. He sets up an immediate duel with none other than Leon Hart, who was basically born casting it. Gray asks if it is really wise to pit a master against a rookie. Leon Hart is definitely not short on confidence, but the teacher insists it is safe since the spell is non-lethal and Gray got in through the Divine Eye special admission. He is no weakling. Instantly, all eyes in the room lock onto him. The old professor clearly did this on purpose. Leon Hart glares with absolute murder in his eyes, totally ready to humiliate him. Honestly, Gray has had much better days. He steps forward until he is standing right before Leon Hart, realizing a single mistake could get him badly hurt. If he fails to defend in time, since the blonde rival is going all out, Gray decides to match that energy. He conjures a massive magic orb, leaving both of them completely speechless. Just looking at the giant orb proves this is absolutely no harmless ether bullet. Leon Hart freezes, too terrified to even try running away. Fortunately, the professor reacts. He casts a barrier to block the sphere before the match turns deadly, or so they thought. Gray's shot is so powerful that it shatters the shield. A massive explosion erupts, tearing through the room to the back rows, blasting the poor blonde kid meters away. Incredibly, everyone survives. Still, the professor admits that without his intervention, the blonde rival would be dead right now. What truly terrifies him is he has never seen an ether bullet this colossal. He looks at Gray, completely stunned, demanding to know how he did it. Honestly, Gray is just as bewildered because he did not mean to unleash that strange power. It is highly likely that the ether bullet he learned back in the war differs completely from academy teachings. But the professor confirms it is indeed the exact same spell. The single difference is pure quality. Gray did not just channel standard magic, but highly compressed ether. Naturally, absolutely nobody in this class has ever heard of such a technique. The professor explains that this level of mastery is something even seasoned instructors struggle to cast. Even he cannot achieve that scale. Instantly, whispers spread. The students wonder if this monstrous power is the reason he earned the Divine Eye recommendation. Gray remains highly skeptical, however, because he remembers this was just standard, run-of-the-mill magic training during the war. To him, the professor's shock is absurd. Surely anyone could do this with basic practice. Put simply, the academy instructors are just incredibly weak. This realization only fuels the professor's excitement. He practically begs Gray to transfer to the magic course immediately, but of course, Gray flatly refuses. He was told his entire life that he possessed zero magic talent, which only drives the teacher wild. He argues that nobody uses compressed energy with such effortless ease. To him, wasting this gift purely on swordsmanship is criminal. But this conversation suddenly unlocks a flood of memories Gray had deeply buried. It was Vila who originally taught him the small amount of magic he knows, and she cared deeply about those who did not even know Odo existed. That vital life force, without it, casting high-tier spells is incredibly difficult. With that in mind, he asks the professor if he knows what Odo is, seeing the man's total confusion. Gray finally understands why he is so powerful. He holds secret techniques that nobody else knows, using advanced future knowledge to make casting magic completely effortless. It's to the point that his once incredibly weak self has now become one of the most powerful. Still, he must tread carefully to keep his secrets safe, so he declines joining the magic class, though the professor promises that the door remains wide open for a talent like him. With that, he dismisses Gray back to his seat, making it very clear that he can daydream or zone out all he wants, since this basic class is far too easy for him anyway. The whole room is speechless except for Leon Hart, whose reaction is on another level. He he stares at Gray with intense admiration that honestly gives him the chills. Later, Gray receives a letter from Ariel summoning him to her office, making him wonder if it is about what happened that morning. Before he can even knock, a voice calls out, telling him to come inside. Almost like she can see right through the wall, but that's not even the strangest part. The second he enters, a sword comes flying straight at him. He manages to deflect the strike, freezing when he realizes the attacker is not Ariel, but a blue-haired girl who looks insanely familiar to him. The trouble is, before he can place her, another sight in the room completely grabs his attention. Ariel is sitting calmly at her desk with two other professors nearby. She claims she was entirely right about him all along, but the men are still skeptical. They directly ask the young girl if that really was her maximum power in that strike. Here is the wild twist. They address her as a male, making Gray realize this is the legendary Albright, the disguised girl destined to become the absolute strongest sorcerer in the world. Before he can even react, Ariel declares that the girl obviously gave it her absolute all, forcing the other professors to pay up on their secret bet about whether Gray could successfully survive a strike from someone as insanely powerful as that blue-haired girl. Feeling quite generous, Ariel happily tosses Gray a share of her winnings, a solid gold coin that is worth a small fortune, while he internally panics holding something so valuable. The other professors admit that Ariel was totally right about her theory the other day. Gray had been actively protecting himself by avoiding his dominant arm on purpose, which proved that he was dealing with some kind of severe injury, and that ruined his performance during the test. Naturally, they are completely right. Gray wonders how they saw through him, but they laugh it off, saying if they missed that, they wouldn't deserve to be called academy professors. Still, Ariel was the very first to spot it during the exam. Now, the others must admit he honestly possesses massive potential. However, raw talent alone is never going to be enough. Before heading out, one professor warns him to heal up quickly, or he won't meet the strict standards for the elite sword course. Afterward, Gray is left alone with Bella and Ariel, who wants to have a serious talk about magic. She reveals she heard exactly what went down in class earlier. Apparently, that professor personally marched straight to her, demanding that Gray be transferred immediately, but she refused since she firmly believes he's much better suited for the sword than magic. Even so, his raw spellwork was impressive, highly impulsive, with zero understanding of ether, and yet still something that incredibly few people can pull off. Naturally, she wants his secret. She even offers him gold, swearing whatever he tells her stays in this room. Ariel does not need the answer for Bella. She is a genius at theory, but absolutely terrible at putting her knowledge into actual practice. For some reason, she just cannot control her ether compression. It makes perfect sense to Gray, who already knows she takes years to unlock her real talent. Ariel keeps begging him, asking if he can help. He can save Bella from being sent to Professor Bradley, a dark name. Gray knows instantly the man is infamous for brutal human experiments, and in the future he triggers massive, incredibly horrific magical disasters. He becomes the absolute worst criminal in history, but right now, Ariel explains that if Bella does not improve by the year's end, she is gone. They will send her to him for surgery to force boost her magic. Ariel wants no part of this horror. Dozens of test subjects have already died under his scalpel, yet Bella would rather face that torture than get expelled. That puts Gray in a brutal bind. Revealing future secrets is incredibly dangerous. It could shatter the timeline, even if Bella is destined to find Odo. But as he remembers the sheer, massive devastation the Liquidator will cause, he reminds himself that this is exactly why he returned to this era. He is here to change that future, so he agrees to teach them. Soon they are at the training grounds. Gray starts explaining everything Bella herself taught him in the future. They sign a binding magic contract to keep these secrets buried forever. At first, his words sound completely insane, but as they think it over, everything clicks. Bella gets incredibly excited. It feels like magic from another era. Better yet, none of his ideas break current magical laws. They only expand them. Eager, the blue-haired girl decides to test it by casting a spell at full power, but for Gray, this is terrifying. He knows what Bella is capable of. He has seen her attacks. Level entire cities. On top of that, she is so incredibly powerful that the odds of her controlling this massive surge right now are zero. Before he can even yell to stop, Bella fires the spell. In 1 second, the entire training field vaporizes. Gray is caught in the blast, barely surviving by seizing control of the terrifying runaway energy. He fights the massive force at the last second, redirecting the explosion into a towering dragon of pure flame that roars into the sky. Bella collapses, Gray panics, but Ariel steps in to calm him down. She is just out of ether. Still, the spell Bella pulled off in a single attempt was absolutely unreal. It is undeniable proof of the massive, sleeping monster inside her. With what little strength she has left, the girl gasps that she needed him. But Gray knows he only taught her what she originally invented herself. More importantly, they successfully saved her from that monstrous surgery. An operation that would not just have risked her life. If she survived, it would have robbed her of her control forever, trading all precision and sanity for a raw, unstable power, which explains why the future Bella was always so cautious with her spells. Could put everyone in danger, serious danger, but now it is Ariel's turn to fulfill her end of the bargain, healing his arm in exchange for Odo lessons. The gorgeous redhead tells him she has a very special magic ready for him. She gently places her warm hand directly over his wound to activate the spell. Bright blue energy wraps around his ruined flesh, and after a few tense minutes, it fades. He is completely shocked to find his arm moves normally again. He is completely stunned because not even a legendary, top-grade healing potion could match this. Ariel proudly boasts that her specialized magic is far superior to mere potions. She tells him to test his newly healed arm by swinging a heavy sword right now. Gray unleashes a flurry of swift slashes, but something still feels off. His swing feels completely off, and the sharp redhead notices his awkward movement immediately. She explains that while she repaired his physical nerves, she cannot mend soul wounds. Most people completely reject that concept, but she firmly believes in it with all her heart. With her special eye, she can see his soul is already healing on its own. So while his arm is physically perfect, he still needs serious rest for his soul. Train normally for now. Still, she really wants to watch him fight. She wants to closely observe his swordsmanship and see why it damages souls so heavily. She explains that the soul is just as vital as ether and Odo here. In fact, there is a legendary sword technique that uses the soul to guide the blade. It is the famed swordsmanship of Ami, a name that leaves Gray totally stunned. Right now, she is still incredibly far from the legendary sword saint he remembers from before. Still, Ariel is exceptionally sharp and points out his movements are identical to Ami's. Except she notes that the mysterious master who trained him was actually far more skilled. And of course, she is absolutely right. Gray was trained by the future Ami. He pivots quickly, asking how a specific style of swordsmanship can actually damage the soul. Ariel explains it requires an exceptionally rare and high-level style of combat. The very same technique used to split a massive Ogre General in half with one hit. At this point, it is obvious Ariel knows his secret and is testing him. She is definitely not just expressing gratitude for helping her win another incredibly massive wager. She watched his fight. She knows normal skills could never do that. Her special eye caught a fleeting glimpse of a strange, chilling power leaking through a chained door. Of course, she is describing the exact same gate Gray saw during his awakening. Then she drops an unbelievable bombshell that is far more shocking than anything she said earlier. She does not fully understand it, but she has seen a similar energy once. It was a dark, catastrophic force tied directly to a legendary being known as the Liquidator. Gray completely freezes. That terrible monster should not even exist right now. His mind goes completely blank because that terrifying entity should not even exist in this time period. It is way too early. There is no way it should be around. Ariel quickly notices his absolute dread, deeply surprised that he is already familiar with that name. But then again, Gray always possesses forbidden knowledge that no regular person should have. This woman is incredibly sharp, and she demands to know what secrets he is actually hiding. Gray only warns her that the beast is an absolute threat to all humanity. He passionately stresses that they must absolutely destroy the entity before it can ever manifest. Seeing his intense desperation, Ariel wonders if he is exaggerating the danger. But if he is telling the absolute truth, then the entire world is in serious. The answer is simple. Bradley's dark experiments have to stop immediately. She already knows about the Liquidator, the monster Bradley is trying to summon. This completely shocks Gray because in his past life, he never knew its origin. He believed nobody did, but now it is all starting to click. The more he thinks, the more it makes sense. In humanity's final years, the Academy always behaved like they knew exactly where the beast would strike. So Gray was the only one left in the dark. Bradley is a professor there. Making the conclusion obvious, the World Academy has always been deeply involved. Because of this, Gray tells Ariel that they must stop this experiment immediately. Ariel agrees, but she simply lacks the authority to shut down a colleague. She even admits she tried pushing her higher-ups to cancel the project. To make matters worse, she cannot even reveal who those superiors are. The institution runs on a strict hierarchy, and she simply cannot break the rules. Right now, the horrifying scale of Professor Bradley's crimes is still hidden. So Gray steps up, claiming he knows the exact location of his hidden lab. They might be able to catch the man red-handed. The big issue is that the Academy still supports him, meaning any move without proof lands them in jail. Knowing the risks, Ariel asks if he has any solid evidence to back his claim. Sadly, Gray has nothing but his future memories, meaning his hands are tied too. Ariel shifts focus, mentioning a genius at the Academy who could help him. This expert knows how to tame highly volatile and unknown supernatural forces. His name is Hector Philo, whom Gray immediately recognizes as the Sword Saint's master. Ariel offers to arrange a private lesson so he can start immediately. Gray gets incredibly excited because mastering his chaotic power is his main goal here. We then jump straight to his training session with the legendary Hector. And let me tell you, things kick off in the most bizarre way imaginable. The old man literally forces Gray to sprint through the Academy forest at full speed. Worst of all, he refuses to let Gray focus on anything besides running. The strategy is to completely exhaust his body to unlock his hidden power. Sounds completely crazy, right? Still, Gray reminds himself to trust the process. He believes Hector knows what he is doing, even though his mind is racing. Every wasted second means Professor Bradley is closer to destroying the world. This brutal and exhausting routine continues for an entire week until Ariel calls him in. She asks about his progress, and Gray immediately complains about all the running. But the atmosphere suddenly turns dead serious when Ariel receives a letter. The message instantly makes her face go completely pale with worry. Gray notices the shift and asks what is wrong, so she hands it over. It is from Professor Bradley himself, demanding the operation proceed. He claims Bella has failed to show progress under their current contract. Gray yells out that this is completely insane and demands a way out. Ariel explains that the only path to refusal lies with the professor himself. Otherwise, the main character is forced to choose between surgery or expulsion. This is exactly why, despite refusing earlier, Ariel finally asks where. His laboratory is hidden. Exposing his crimes would void the entire contract. When it comes to finding that proof, she completely trusts Gray to help her. They realize Gray has been telling the truth this whole time. Together, they will drag that criminal out into the light. With that settled, Gray reveals the lab is in the mountains. Near Toral Village, Ariel remembers that the villain has an officially approved academy lab. In that exact area, meaning he has been using it as a perfect cover for his secret experiments. Besides, everyone knows how professors act. Would never interfere with another's lab without a good reason, meaning they desperately need hard evidence to expose him once and for all, but before they can plan any further. Bella walks straight into the office. She got the exact same terrible letter as well. Ariel quickly snatches it and reassures her that she does not need to worry because he has no idea what is really going on. Bella asks if Ariel truly plans to face Bradley completely on her own. Ariel calmly answers that her own strength is more than enough. Still, Gray knows that monster is highly capable of and gets a terribly bad feeling. He immediately offers to join her. Bella does the same, insisting they must not risk their lives for her. It sounds like a solid plan, but Ariel warns them Bradley is still a professor, and who knows what he might do to them. Gray says that is exactly why they need to work together. If they use the very power he unleashed to defeat the Ogre General, their odds of winning will skyrocket, seeing how completely determined both of them truly are. Our Ariel knows they will go regardless of what she says. She finally agrees on one condition: no matter what happens, they must prioritize their own safety. With that settled, they set off. Honestly, you can just feel the tension rising. Laboratory entrance. The three of them scout the area and confirm no one is around, making this the perfect moment to break inside. The basic plan is to slip inside while Bradley attends a conference with the Magic Society and search for any hard evidence they can find. Of course, there is a good chance the laboratory is heavily trapped, meaning they must stay alert. Bella worries they will get caught, but Ariel calmly reassures her she can go back whenever she wants. Still, Bella is determined to help, not understanding why they would risk their lives for someone like her. But Gray cuts in right away to state they are not doing this just for her. Stopping this could literally save the entire world. That leaves Bella even more confused. Ariel admits that is probably going a bit too far, but she agrees they must tread carefully. Still, they made their choice. They have strong resolve. They will finish this. Quietly, they sneak forward to begin. Ariel uses her destructive fire magic to blast open a massive hole in the side wall of the fortress, leading straight into the prison where the monster keeps his unfortunate victims locked away. Some of them are completely dead, while others are barely breathing, but the worst part is that none of them move or call out. Ariel immediately spots at least 14 forbidden spells. Each one is a massive crime on its own, meaning they do not even need to mention the illegal human experiments to easily prove. Throw that beast in jail, though those atrocities will guarantee he never leaves. But everything takes a backseat when they enter a chamber containing a massive altar. At the center, Bella nervously asks if they should grab the evidence and run now, or try to rescue the prisoners. Gray suggests leaving immediately before Bradley returns. Suddenly, a chilling voice echoing from right behind them asks if they are referring to him. Standing there, naturally, it is Bradley himself, the one person who should not be in this room. He quickly boasts about his trick before they can even ask. He sent a double to the grand conference he had worked to finish a highly crucial experiment, and apparently he just received some fresh materials. He turns, the chilling truth hits. Those materials are actually dozens of cold, lifeless bodies. Seeing them here sparks a completely new idea in his mind. He wants to experiment on them instead, these elite, powerful mages. Targets bursting with way more magical energy than any average civilian could possess. Smirking, the villain admits he is clueless about how they uncovered his secret laboratory. Either way, he is certain they came alone, meaning he can use them however he wants. If they disappear, the Academy will never suspect him. Furious, Ariel snaps right back. demanding to know if they are just lab rats. To him, Bradley telling her to relax changes nothing. One thing is clear. He has no intention of letting them leave alive. He wants to push magic. The arrogant bastard is so overconfident, he barely reacts to the sudden, massive wave of hot fire shooting straight for his face, setting the entire laboratory ablaze. To everyone's shock, Ariel did not throw it. Bella is the one glaring daggers at him, ready to kill, yet as the black smoke clears, Bradley still stands. Completely unharmed, his quick defensive barrier saved his life, and he actually starts praising her power, noting Ariel's divine eye clearly selected a real prodigy. Honestly, he did not expect such raw strength from a mere student. Now he is curious to see what the other kids can really do. Laughing, he asks if she is truly prepared to murder her own instructor. She coldly replies that slaying him is far better than becoming his next experiment. A full magical battle is about to start, but Ariel quickly cuts in. They have enough proof, they must leave, but Bradley makes it hard. He unleashes a massive blast of dark magic, catching Ariel off guard. Ariel barely blocks the attack, only for him to mock her futile efforts. He calls this spell his absolute masterpiece, naming it the Flame of Gluttony. It literally eats away at shields, turning defensive spells into its own fuel. It is completely unstoppable. Ariel's defensive barrier begins to crack. Cracks spread rapidly, forcing her to draw directly from her divine eye power. She manages to form a second defense, but it is clear it won't last very long. Desperate, she hands a memory bag to the young students. Hector will know what to do the moment he sees it. Run, immediately. However, Bella refuses to flee, casting her own spell to create a third wall of defense. Ariel screams at her, reminding her of their prior agreement. Bradley is simply too dangerous, and staying will only get them all killed. Then the unthinkable happens. Ariel's barrier completely shatters under the pressure. Yet Bella remains standing. Not only does she hold the line, she actually begins neutralizing his chaotic spell, revealing a major secret about his magic. They just needed a different approach, a new angle. Ariel is stunned, but Bradley is absolutely losing his mind. He screams that creating a counter spell this quickly is totally impossible. Bella just smiles, mentioning a fascinating magical theory she recently studied. Out his trick so much faster. That sends Bradley straight into a furious rage, and he starts screaming, demanding to know who taught her. Bella simply replies that it is a secret, though she offers him one tiny hint. Her teacher was just another student. Bradley takes that as a cruel joke, then grabs a strange magic crystal and crushes it into pieces. He warns them this will be their end, and soon. Seconds, hundreds of eerie energy skulls join his earlier spell. That makes his attack much stronger, but Bella's own energy quickly begins to give out. Bradley notices immediately. He figures she has at most 1 minute of ether left. Desperate, Gray tells Ariel to use every single second to attack. And Ariel uses her unique eye to search for any remaining option. Realizing she can project her mana outside the barrier, she takes action. Within seconds, she fires a devastating beam of energy that looks amazing at first, but not for long. It turns out the redhead's offensive magic is actually among the weakest of the academy staff, and Bradley's flames easily absorb part of its power, rendering the entire attack useless. Talk about a total dead end. Bella asks what they can possibly do. Since she cannot hold on much longer, that is when Gray tells them to step aside. It's his turn. At first glance, his sword should never reach that bastard from so far away, but there is one way, and Ariel is the only one who knows it. She warns him that using that power again could easily kill him. Even if he survives, his injured arm might be ruined forever. Gray does not care. He jumps over the flames to do what must be done, rushing Bradley with a blinding strike, cleanly cutting off his head. It happens so fast that Bella can barely believe what she just witnessed. Then Bradley's body drops, completely still. Ariel is left just as shocked, though. even more thrilled because this is her very first time seeing that legendary power in action. But then another massive problem starts. The slash was so strong that it wrecked a huge part of the structure, bringing the ceiling crashing down and threatening to crush them, too. Ariel steps forward and uses her own power to stop even the smallest falling rock. Even so, all she can do is ask Gray how he managed to shatter all her expectations and how his arm feels. In response, he drops his sword completely by accident because a fierce pain is tearing through every single part of his body. On top of that, there is a worrying numbness. That dark black mark has clearly spread, but the good news is he can still stand and move his arm. If the Gray from a few months ago had tried something like that, he would have passed out for days. That means Hector's weirdly brutal training is somehow actually working. Naturally, Ariel thanks him. Because if they are still breathing, it is all thanks to him. She still apologizes for being so weak that she practically forced him to use that forbidden power. Gray tells her he is the one who dragged them into this, insisting they stop that bastard once and for all. Either way, the important thing now is Ariel warning him not to tap into that power again, because next time the damage will be completely irreversible. From how dead serious she sounds, Gray realizes she truly means it, so he quietly agrees. Seeing that, Bella takes her chance to ask what he used and why she did not feel even the slightest trace of ether leaving his body. The more she thinks about what she saw, the less sense it makes, but Ariel says it has to stay that way. She cannot pry any deeper into the matter, ask any questions, or speak a word of what she saw, or Ariel will be forced to erase her memories. With that threat on the table, Bella promises to play by their rules and even offers a magical contract so they can trust her completely. So they sign the pact. Now that Bradley is dealt with, Gray is the first to suggest they ignore the experiments for now and help the victims who seem to be trapped in a sleep induced by dark magic. Ariel suggests taking them to the Academy infirmary, casting a massive protective spell to cover everyone in a shield, keeping them safe until they leave. That buys them some time, but brace yourselves, because this next discovery is sickening. They quickly discover all of Bradley's twisted experiments revolved around using human sacrifices as catalysts to artificially boost someone's magical abilities. The weird part is nothing here seems connected to the liquidator at all, so they wonder if it is kept in another facility, but Gray is absolutely certain it is. Here, this is where the tragedy happened in his previous timeline, the one that wiped out tens of thousands of lives. He believes only the liquidator could cause that kind of destruction, until he remembers the real killer was a colossal mass bursting right out of the ground. If that is true, then what he's hunting isn't out in the open, but deep underground. He asks Ariel to scan the area for subterranean pathways. To everyone's sheer surprise, she actually detects faint traces of short-range teleportation, magic lingering in specific sections of the floor. That proves there is a hidden chamber below, accessible only through this exact type of spell. Based on the magic residue, she guesses it is 300 meters down, nearly half a kilometer. Underground, extremely dangerous, but they have to try. Ariel instantly summons a teleportation gate over the marks, warning that if there is nothing there, they will just end up stuck in solid dirt. But get ready for this. The gate opens, revealing a colossal subterranean city, radiating intense waves of ether from every direction, especially from a giant dome in the dead center. Ariel can tell it is not just ether. A totally different brand of power is seeping out from the depths, the heavy aura of the liquidator. This is definitely where they need to go. They step inside the dome and find a bizarre door, standing all on its own, looking exactly like the one Gray encountered before. Even weirder, it is placed inside a highly suspicious magic circle. Though Ariel fails to sense any immediate danger, she approaches, touches the frame, and even opens it. She is so casual, Bella nearly has a heart attack. Ariel calms Her down explaining the door itself holds zero power. It is simply a symbol for the ritual. The real power isn't in the wood, but the magical structures that form the circle around it. Suddenly, without warning, the arrays activate and start glowing in a way that spells absolute trouble. Gray instantly yells for her to back away since Ariel is the one who triggered them. She simply steps outside the circle, completely unbothered because she knows this ritual cannot actually summon the liquidator. This is proven true when the surface of the door begins to crack and a dark, hazy energy tries to spill out. Before it can fully break free, the ancient structures run out of juice. Everything settles down and as the rift slowly seals, Ariel explains those artifacts were never actually designed to summon the liquidator directly. They just tear open a window into its dimension and harvest the leaking energy, but there is a filter directing it all, and it is fueled by something truly horrific, most likely human sacrifices, just like the grotesque remains they found upstairs. A shaken Bella asks why Bradley would resort to such utter madness just for power. Ariel quietly asks if she remembers the pitch-black flame the bastard unleashed, or that bizarre exploding crystal. They were obviously forged from the same energy, just rough prototype versions of the power behind that door. Now, the rift's completely seal shut. Gray quietly wonders if Bradley was actually attempting to summon the liquidator after all. Ariel admits she has no idea. Maybe not. He likely tried and failed because his energy ran dry, but the real mystery lies elsewhere. Just one of these giant structures costs as much as a whole kingdom's annual treasury. Building this many is totally insane. Bella wonders if the Discar Empire funded this horror. Ariel highly doubts it. That kind of wealth could only flow from an organization with research far exceeding any empire. On the map, there is really only one suspect. Gray speaks up, saying the only group that fits is the World Union Academy. Ariel nods in agreement. Completely, no other magic faction could ever afford a project this insane. Confused, Bella asks if the Academy is not meant to protect everyone from dark threats and play the noble hero. Even so, Ariel insists they are the only real suspect. Gray clings to hope, arguing that surely not all high ranks would support such dark deeds. He remembers clearly that in his past timeline, they never abandoned civilians to the monster. Because of that, he refuses to believe the Academy is a threat to humanity. Ariel agrees most of its members are decent and would never tolerate these horrific trials, but that place is packed with different factions and rival agendas, so the variables are endless. Whoever backed this project has someone major supporting them. At the very top, having watched them for decades, Ariel warns them not to trust the institution blindly. The masterminds behind this probably think they are saving humanity, which makes it far worse. The site was constructed with such secrecy that finding any real clues to the mastermind is practically impossible, and just like that, everything goes to hell. Explosions erupt all around them, triggered automatically to wipe out evidence. The moment Bradley died, Bella completely panics, screaming that they must run, but Ariel calmly remarks they are only basic explosives. She is hardly weak enough to be taken out by a cheap trick. Within seconds, she begins absorbing power from the giant artifacts to fuel her own magic circle around the group. With an icy voice, she tells them to stand still as burning debris crashes down all around them. Miraculously, she manages to warp the entire party safely to the edge of the forest. Better yet, she also rescued every single surviving victim, alongside the most crucial items here, all those massive power monoliths. It was an incredibly risky gamble, but her best option. Knowing how corrupt the Academy leadership can be, she needs undeniable proof like this to build a case they cannot possibly ignore. The next day, the group heads straight to the director's office. He turns out to be Alexandro, the exact same man Gray mistook for a basic assistant. He welcomes them inside, explaining that the survivors are currently getting treated in the medical wing. He then sincerely thanks them all for putting an end to Bradley's illegal experiments. As for those bizarre power structures, the Academy's analysis confirms each single unit is worth more than an entire nation's yearly budget, but the real question remains. Where did they come from? They were actually stolen goods from an attacked transport. An assault that left 78 elite Academy agents dead, completely wiped out. That news shocks everyone except Ariel, who already knows all about the case. It happened 15 years ago, orchestrated by Bloodrinker, the absolute largest criminal syndicate in the world. Just hearing that name sparks a deep rage in Bella. Because those monsters were the ones who murdered her parents. The problem is that the syndicate has countless branches, and nobody knows their hideouts or who actually leads them. The only certainty is that they're behind 70% of global crime. With that reach, it wouldn't be shocking if they had plants inside the Academy itself. That revelation stuns Gray, who always viewed this prestigious place as an ideal haven. But Ariel reminds him that this place never judges by gender, name, or social class. That open-door policy lets talented youngsters from all over the world grow stronger, but it also means cunning criminals can easily slip right through the gates. It is a terrifying thought, and Bella insists they must hunt them down immediately. The director agrees, but points out he's still a subordinate with limited authority. If they want to uncover who is behind everything, his only real advice to them is to grow stronger. He reveals that some of the students here are so powerful they actually hold far more influence than he does. Here, strength is everything. This means they can make a real difference, which clearly fires up the whole group. Meanwhile, Alexandro silently watches them, knowing Ariel couldn't have beat Bradley alone. One of these two newcomers did it, and he cannot wait to see what kind of absolute monsters they'll eventually become. After the meeting, Gray stares at the mysterious mark on his arm. He realizes that whether he wants to defeat the Liquidator or uncover this Academy's dark secrets, the path is identical. He must get stronger. He dwells on this for a while until he suddenly bumps straight into another student with pitch black hair. Before Gray can even begin to apologize, the stranger lashes out with a kick so fast he barely blocks it. Then the arrogant kid starts throwing insults, shouting at Gray to watch his step, and mocking him as talentless trash from special admissions. The guy clearly wants a fight. Gray is just about to draw his sword when the bully spots Ariel approaching, quickly deciding to back off for now. It seems like a random clash, but once the guy gets far enough away, he begins muttering to himself because apparently someone ordered him to keep tabs on Gray, and that mastermind was Bradley himself. Now it's unclear if this is a fresh order, meaning the mage isn't actually dead or just an old command. Either way, when Gray reports the incident to the redhead, there isn't much she can do since the strike used no weapons or magic. Still, she suggests he could just settle things himself by teaching the guy a lesson. While she conveniently looks the other way, Gray completely passes on that offer and instead admits this isn't the first time people have mocked him for his entry through special admission, but this is the first time things actually turned physical. Seeing how badly Gray and his friends are treated, Ariel apologizes. She admits that if she held real authority in the Academy, nobody would dare question her choices. Gray tells her not to sweat it. Thanks to her, he is here, and he is positive that he, Bella, and the rest will prove to the world that this Divine Eye program was not a mistake. After all, she knows how to spot talent. She thanks him, though she still hopes he will stand up for himself. More often, she adds that out of the entire Divine Eye group, he is the one she expects the absolute most from. She is sure Bella, Yi, and the others can become top-tier heroes too, yet the moment she truly believed someone could surpass human limits was when she met him. At first, Gray thinks it is crazy to compare himself to those legendary figures, but seeing Ariel so sure, he realizes that kind of doubt is only for people who have already given up. Sure, he defeated a Link and Bought a little time, but humanity remains in danger. The world's fate is still resting on his shoulders. After that, things quiet down, and soon they are in practical sword class. Every student must face off in a one-on-one duel. Gray resolves to prove he belongs in this academy. Just one problem: his opponent is Leon Hart, the student with absolute best sword skills in class. Seeing Gray's shock, the teacher explains he paired students with matching levels so nobody would hold back, which means Gray is severely underestimating himself, even after beating that Ogre General weeks ago. He still believes he cannot match Leon Hart. On top of that, he assumes the blonde guy still despises him and will try to crush him. Either way, the matches start, and Leon Hart goes all out immediately. His opening assault is so brutal that Gray can barely even react. He is forced to block as lightning-fast strikes keep raining down. Clear this is no easy match, but after defending, Gray finally strikes back, and his swing is so heavy Leon Hart admits he cannot understand Gray's failing to enter through normal exams. That sudden respect boosts Gray's confidence. Suddenly, the battle feels a lot more balanced, bit by bit. His counters get sharper and faster. He expected Leon Hart to destroy him, but he is actually holding his ground quite well. Still, the massive gap between them is obvious. Gray might have potential, but Leon Hart's technique is so perfect it is terrifying. Gray realizes Leon is a total monster, or at least he would have been to his past self. But now things are different. He knows exactly how to handle monsters. Like this, he uses his survival instincts to read those wild moves. Until even Leon Hart admits he has not had this much fun in forever. But that is the real issue. The guy is smiling, he is not even looking tired yet. Gray knows he must end this quickly, remembering his teachers' words from earlier: treat this class duel like a real life-or-death battle. And in a real fight, anything goes. Gray slips past the next strike, sweeps Leon Hart's leg, and completely throws him off balance. While the blonde is still airborne, Gray makes his move. He exploits the opening, lunging forward with eyes that scream this is a fight to the death. But Leon Hart is not about to back down either, refusing to lose today. Right before crashing into the dirt, he manages to shift his entire weight. He thrusts his arm out, aiming his blade right at Gray's throat. Their weapons freeze simultaneously. Gray steps back, offering a hand and declaring a draw. The blonde shakes his head. He insists he could have ended it right there. Since this was just practice, he claims he chose to hold back his strike. Gray targeted the neck, giving Leon Hart a split second to counter. No matter how Gray spins it, the outcome is clear as day. Leon Hart claims the victory, yet his attitude is surprisingly graceful. He admits that Gray showed him what separates training from a real battle. True combat requires far more than just flashy, practiced sword techniques. Humility aside, there is no denying that Gray pulled a dirty trick. Leon Hart just laughs it off. In war, dirty tricks are fully allowed. He wants another match. Gray hesitates because his body is already reaching its limit. His physical limits can't compare to the absurd stamina of his blonde opponent. Before they can start, a massive student suddenly interrupts their conversation. He loudly complains that the instructor never authorized dirty physical moves or kicks. He looks down on Gray, wondering why a complete nobody got this pairing. He insults him directly, utterly blind to Gray's actual capabilities. Leon Hart immediately shuts him down, stating he is the only one worthy of fighting Gray. Essentially, Gray is the real monster here. The instructor steps in to agree. He confirms that both of these boys are on a remarkably similar elite level. If this loudmouth really has doubts, he is welcome to test Gray himself. Grinning confidently, the big guy boasts about his own entrance exam scores. He claims he easily defeated the examiner during the academy trials. Leon Hart sighs. That arrogance is exactly the mistake he once made. Honestly, you do not want to miss the moment Gray finally shows his true strength. But this annoying fool is completely ruining his precious quality sparring time. Leon Hart glares at the bully, looking like he wants to end him on the spot. The bully notices the intense pressure, completely clueless about the danger. The instructor signals the start. Gray locks eyes with his new opponent. He can tell right away that this giant possesses far superior physical endurance. This is a real test. The arrogant jerk rushes forward like a wild beast. He intends to utterly crush the special admission student, but Gray is ready. Instead of merely blocking, Gray deflects the heavy strike with effortless grace. The bully is sent railing, his smug face instantly turning to pure confusion. Gray remains perfectly calm, realizing this guy's raw strength is mediocre at best. He honestly wonders if the loudmouth is holding back because he feels unbelievably weak. With a single, basic strike, Gray sends him crashing hard into the dirt. The clash ends in an instant, leaving everyone stunned by the outcome. Gray even apologizes, explaining he did not mean to go that hard. Humiliated and bruised, the bully scrambles back up, instantly demanding a rematch. The teacher nods, telling him he can try until he understands his own weakness. And so the beatdown continues until the arrogant bully is completely broken. He is dragged away, right after the teacher announces that two talents, Leon Hart and Gray, have won the right to represent their entire class. They will face off against the formidable second years. Historically, the freshmen have lost 35 times in a row. This year, they expect different results. They expect a change. Even so, Gray cannot help but wonder if the power gap is truly that massive. The instructor answers with brutal, harsh honesty. Yes, it is massive. No one expects the fresh faces to win. Simply getting selected is a massive honor. If they somehow manage to pull off a victory, it would be nothing short of a miracle. That is why he calmly tells them not to worry. It eases Gray's mind, but he knows he must seize this opportunity to change how everyone views the special students of the Divine Eye. He will prove they can fight, no matter what. That means training to his absolute limits, but all plans are derailed during a tense faculty meeting, where an elder named Bruda from the magic department steps forward. He demands that the special student, Amy White, be expelled. Ariel instantly objects. She is the one guarding these Divine Eye students after all. Bruda snaps back that she is precisely the issue. The girl failed her advancement exam, yet she was allowed to remain solely due to her special status. Honestly, the old man's logic is hard to argue with. Any other failing student would have been expelled immediately. Ariel tries to explain that Amy cannot showcase her true potential, yet due to severe physical side effects. But she is destined to become a world-class warrior. The issue is the other faculty members dismiss this as a weak excuse. They demand to know right now exactly when these so-called miraculous powers will finally manifest. Ariel insists Amy could unlock her full potential at any moment. They need patience and must uphold the Academy's core mission to nurture raw, hidden talent from across the globe, but logic falls on deaf ears with these stubborn fools. Brutus scoffs, claiming the divine eye that made Ariel famous is growing dull. His proof is glaringly obvious. Every student she handpicked has turned out to be worse. He and another instructor suggest it might finally be time to get rid of the divine eye special admission system altogether, reminding everyone that if the majority of the faculty votes together, they can easily expel these so-called failures. The threat causes even the neutral teachers to waver in their support. One murmurs that while Bella has improved, she is still far from impressive. In truth, the whole special program is starting to look like mere charity. Bit by bit, the red-haired instructor realizes she is surrounded by enemies. Bruda deals the final blow, mockingly asking if she truly believes she can judge raw potential better than the entire room, even if she wants to snap back. Ariel knows that will only fuel their anger. It would bruise the egos of the undecided teachers, ruining any chance of swaying them. To survive this political trap, she must play her cards extremely carefully, refusing to take the bait of Bruda's bitter, mocking insults. His mockery and his sharp accusations, she remains completely silent and reminds herself that her legendary instincts have not dulled. Her pupils simply need more time, yet she has no way to prevent their looming expulsion. They are about to expel everyone until a teacher mentions Gray. They know he is chosen to represent the first-year class, but they highly doubt he will achieve anything. Then, Bruda steps up and proposes deciding the future of the Divine Eye program based entirely on the results of this tournament. Ariel looks to Hector, but his tight expression tells her it is a losing battle. She quickly explains that Gray is not built for friendly tournament sparring. His absolute best only comes out in life or death scenarios. The other teachers just scoff, treating this as a weak excuse. And honestly, it really does sound like a cheap cop-out. As Ariel tries to fight back, the headmaster finally cuts in. Tired of all the bickering, he says they will hold this debate until after they witness Gray in the upcoming tournament. In the end, everyone leaves. Ariel stands there alone, shaking with a heavy heart. She feels like she failed them. Gray's unique abilities are not made for simple sparring, and it is also still far too early for him to tap into them again. If he pushes his luck, he could literally die. Still, a selfish part of her hopes he succeeds, just so her other raw talents can live to fight another day. But for that, Gray must pull off something absolutely legendary, soon. We arrive at the high-stakes tournament day. Crowds of excited students pack the grand arena, watching intensely as the first-year challengers step onto the field. Leon, Hart, and Gray have won the rare chance to battle the ultimate second-year champion Lugjian Hartman, or so they thought, but then things get crazy. They unexpectedly introduce another second-year opponent, Raya, the very bully, who ambushed Gray. Now everyone wonders how this fight works. They will explain the rules later, but the shock remains. Gray immediately recognizes the thug, wondering if he has to fight both of them. Meanwhile, under the watchful eyes of all the teachers, Luino notices something. Hardly any staff showed up last year, meaning something big must be different this time. Leon Hart quickly pieces it together, saying the teachers are likely just curious about Gray. Luino laughs it off as a massive stretch, but Bruda overhears them and coldly confirms they are all here to witness the ultimate downfall of the Divine Eye class. And yes, even though Ariel kept quiet to avoid crushing him under all that stress, this arrogant jerk makes sure to ruin her efforts, loudly declaring to the entire arena that the survival of these so-called failures relies completely on Gray's match. Since absolutely no one expects him to pull through, they came to see him fail. They are basically here to watch their class collapse. Gray turns to Ariel, asking if that is true, desperate to keep him from throwing his life away in the arena. She fakes a bright smile and lies, saying Bruda is only trying to mess with him. It could have worked, but Gray easily notices how violently her hands are trembling, so he only softly reassures her that he trusts her. Meanwhile, Bruda continues to insult her openly, claiming today will prove she is a complete fraud. Right then, the mood shifts. Gray speaks up, saying he cannot let those insults slide. Bruda can trash-talk him all he wants, but he will never let anyone mock Ariel's keen judgment. Of course, that only prompts Bruda to sneer and throw the harsh truth right back. He and his class are total failures. Right here, Gray declares he will prove everyone wrong. With a threat like that out in the open, the match just became a lot more intense. Suddenly, the announcer commands everyone to take their and Gray is left wondering what is even going on. This setup feels like a brutal 2-on-1. He figures if he had only been matched up with Lunel, he might still have stood a chance. Instead, he gets Rada. He may not be the strongest fighter, but he is a rare survivor of the experiments of Professor Bradley. The man surgically rewired his brain to grant him inhuman reflexes, and because Gray relies heavily on surprise attacks to win, he is in deep trouble. Now, Gray gets a warning not to push himself too hard if he is Thinking about using his special ability, hearing that, our hero just says, "There is absolutely nothing to worry about. The first match begins with the top two ranked students, and the announcer explains the protective magic covering the entire arena. Basically, they can fight like it is life or death without actually worrying about lethal blows the moment the signal finally sounds to kick things off. Leon Hart charges forward at absolute full speed, while Lunel patiently drops into a defensive stance, fully prepared to take whatever comes his way. Still, he does not hesitate to strike back. The second he spots an opening, his sword swings wide and Leon Hart barely manages to slip past. Right after, the challenger plants his feet and throws a massive kick straight at the face of Lunel, mimicking the move Gray used in their own fight. Too bad Lunel is far too clever for that. He slides away easily, admitting Leon Hart is stronger than he was during his own first year. That just gives him the perfect excuse to pick up the pace. Now it is his turn, and watch how he unleashes a relentless, brutal storm of incredibly fast blows. He forces Leon Hart backward across the entire arena. Trapped against the ropes, cornered with absolutely nowhere to run, Lunel aims straight for his neck, and as the blade stops inches from the skin, the buzzer sounds to end the match. Unsurprisingly, the results do not shock a soul. Leon Hart steps back as the announcer calls up the next pair of powerful fighters. It is Gray versus Rada. Now our hero slowly steps toward the center of the arena, telling himself he has survived opponents much stronger than this guy. Plus, Ariel and the others are counting on him to win, so failure is not an option. Then Rada drags his sword forward, whispering to Professor Bradley to be patient because he is about to send Gray straight to hell. That confirms the professor is long dead. This guy is completely out of his mind. Even worse, his raw strength is terrifyingly real. Gray realizes this the very instant their heavy swords clash for the first time. The impact is brutal, knocking Gray backward and leaving his arm completely numb. In this moment, he knows every single warning about the reflexes of the madman was dead on. His speed is ridiculous. Combined with a terrifyingly strong right arm, he starts shutting down every single plan our hero has. He has barely been in the arena for a few seconds, and his mind is already screaming to activate his special ability, but a crucial warning from Ariel before the match echoes deep in his mind. Using that power could easily cost him his life. Sure, winning this match matters, but not enough to die for. Besides, the barrier magic is not built to contain his true force. If he loses control, his opponent dies. Because of that, Gray forces himself to hold the line. He will gamble with his own survival, but he refuses to murder someone else. But Gray has no clue. He does not know that Rada does not feel the same. Tired of waiting for a counter, the madman launches his own sudden strike. It is a flurry of quick, precise blows, almost completely overshadowed by some creepy, constant muttering. He whispers the exact same words over and over. Fortunately for Gray, though, Rada's moves are actually very basic, and with Gray's overall stats, he should easily end this duel in seconds. It makes him wonder what is going on. Is Rada plotting something? The answer comes when he looks up into a pair of crazed eyes filled with raw bloodlust. Rada drives his sharp sword straight toward him. Directly at Gray's eye, Gray instantly knows he cannot dodge this. The battle would have ended right then and there, if not for a sudden, bizarre shift. Somehow, Gray manages to block the fatal strike with his own sword. It makes no sense. Even he knows there was no way he should have made it. Did that lunatic weaken the strike on purpose? No, something else is wrong. This is not the only odd thing. High above, standing in the arena seats, Gray spots something moving inside Rada's chest. What is that strange power? Meanwhile, the instructors call the battle far too one-sided and slow. They mock him. Rada could have easily finished this ages ago. But a few of them have to admit that the boy is holding out surprisingly well. For them, that alone proves the boy has some real strength in him. But none of that matters when Ariel demands they stop the test. She has a terrible feeling about this. Things are about to get very ugly very fast. But the other teachers mock her, boasting that their security system is absolutely perfect. It is guaranteed to block any attack threatening either student's life. They think she is just scared her student will lose, but Ariel screams back at them. Ariel screams back that their precious defenses cannot protect Gray from this. But it's too late. Within seconds, that bizarre energy erupts. A single swing of Rada's sword tears straight through the solid arena floor and the barrier. The shockwave nearly hits Bruta too. Now she is finally listening. She realizes something dark and dangerous is inside him. A wicked force must have been planted deep inside the boy. She tries to step in. But her own power is instantly repelled by that very same security barrier. To save Gray, they have no other choice but to disable the entire system manually. But that takes precious time. Ariel screams for Gray to run. Run and buy time, but Gray knows turning his back now is a death sentence. He cannot flee. The only option left is to face this crazy beast head-on. Without wasting a single second, his master's cryptic advice echoes in his mind. He must think of his own body as if it were the sword itself, a bizarre concept. That initially confuses him, but once he pictures the edge, it clicks. Rada launches another massive strike, but this time, Gray is ready. He slips right past it, instantly appearing behind his foe. His movement is incredibly fast. For a split second, Gray actually wonders if Rada slowed down. No, Rada did not slow down. Gray is the one who has changed. This realization gives him the confidence to press forward and strike hard. He drives his blade straight at Rada's face. He almost lands the hit. But the active barrier flares up, generating a tiny force field to block him. Forget the impact, all that stored energy blasts him away at an insane speed. Until he slams right into one of the arena walls, and watch closely, because he goes. Straight through the barrier, watch, he literally blasts right through the magic barrier, shocking everyone. They start screaming and asking what kind of madness this even is, immediately ordering the medical team to stand by and treat Rada's injuries. That really should have been the end of the match, except Rada stands right back up, now completely overtaken by demonic energy. To make matters worse, he is completely unharmed, forcing Ariel to warn Gray that this vicious battle is not over, and he barely raises his defense in time. To block what comes next, that dark energy shapes itself into massive tentacles, rushing forward and attacking him from absolutely every angle, coming at him relentlessly. Bruta blurts out in horror, asking what that thing is. Ariel pressures the tech team, who tell her the barrier will finally shut off in 10 seconds. That does not sound like much, but inside this absolute nightmare, every second counts, especially when Rada closes the distance again, unleashing an attack with pure force, terrifying speed, and utter bloodlust. That Gray finally understands this monster is not human anymore. Then, again, Gray is not exactly an ordinary fighter either, so even though he fights back with every bit of his power, he still refuses to kill. That choice costs him dearly. Because his opponent's next strike connects heavily, making him cough up a mouthful of blood. Worst of all, this confirms that without activating his ability, he will die anyway. So Gray decides to bet everything and releases his power, slicing through his terrifying opponent. In the blink of an eye, with that final blow, Rada finally collapses. The entire academy watches in stunned silence from the stands, completely speechless. Until the energy barrier finally drops to the ground, and the teachers rush into action. They quickly combine their restraint spells, pinning the rampaging Rada down. At the same time, Gray forces his battered body to gather whatever strength remains to try and stand. But Ariel was entirely correct. His physical limits break and he crashes down. Ground, heavily injured, a red-haired healer rushes over to hold his open wounds together with magic. While the other students waste no time assisting, together they stabilize his condition. Before Gray finally blacks out, he stays completely unconscious for only about 10 seconds though. Suddenly, he sits right back up as if nothing happened, his severe wounds already. Fully closed, he feels perfectly fine, with zero pain. To be absolutely sure, Ariel inspects him. Using her special sight, and what she discovers leaves her completely speechless. Somehow, his soul does not have a single scratch despite unleashing that dark power. His physical body was fully restored by the healing spells, leaving Hector as the only unsurprised face. He explains that their prompt magic simply lessened the intense backlash. His specialized training was designed to harden Gray's mind and body so he could endure such a destructive force. Ariel is still incredibly furious that he placed her prized student in such extreme danger. And they bicker back and forth, while Gray can only appreciate that his brutal training actually saved his life. Meanwhile, they carry the injured Rada out of the arena. For urgent medical attention, Ariel, naturally, cannot resist asking the administrators who officially won this intense match. This battle is much more difficult to judge, but Hector notes that Rada's automatic inner barrier, deployed when Gray's final slash nearly sliced his face. That means Gray is the true victor, and as the first-year representative, he is declared the winner. The stadium erupts into massive cheers as Hector reminds the school leaders that Gray has just ended their 35-year losing streak. Losing streak, to him, that is more than enough proof that Ariel's divine eye never makes mistakes. Right away, Alexander claims only an idiot would still want to scrap the special class after what just went down. One of the professors goes even further, saying they should feel ashamed for almost throwing away such a talented student. Ariel stays quiet, but inside her mind is screaming thank you. Meanwhile, the teachers turn to Bruta, demanding if he still doubts Ariel and her divine eye. Of course, he and his supporters turn out to be total cowards, practically running away from the scene with their tails tucked between their legs. It is pretty clear this drama is officially over. Someone even mentions that people once warned it was absolute suicide to challenge the divine eye, a lesson they clearly forgot. A long road lies ahead, but this victory, it changes absolutely everything. That old comment about Ariel's past and how respected she once was really gets Gray thinking. He cannot help but wonder about the truths behind her fall from grace, but before he can dig deeper, his thoughts cut off. The headmaster walks over, looking dead serious. They need to talk. What Rada did was only possible due to a dark, abnormal power hidden inside his body. The academy will investigate and make the culprits pay. Still, Alexander admits they cannot ignore the school's massive failure in failing to detect what almost killed Gray. Now, the headmaster offers a sincere apology. Gray shrugs it off, telling him not to worry. The headmaster moves on. The second issue, after Rada lost control, Gray unleashed an entirely different force. This was not magic at all. It was something way more bizarre. A power that defies all modern magical theory, and that is exactly why he wants Gray to explain himself. The young warrior quickly weighs his options, deciding to tell the truth, but keeping things incredibly simple. He simply claims he does not know, but to sell the lie. He adds that he did not even realize this power was there until Ariel noticed it and pointed out the raw potential sleeping inside him. Hearing this from afar, the red-haired professor wonders what he is planning. Gray shoots her a subtle look, pleading with her to play along because to defeat the liquidators, she must remain the one pulling the strings. Ariel reads the room immediately. She steps right in to back him up. She explains that while Gray's energy cannot be measured by standard magic, her divine eye sees it clearly. That is why Hector trained him so mercilessly, hoping he could master it. She has also been researching it herself, so she wants all matters concerning his power left strictly to her. Alexander agrees, since these special students are entirely her responsibility. He offers his full support, and then they shift to an urgent matter. Rada, he needs a thorough medical examination while recovering in the infirmary. Ariel goes along, meeting Gray later to report that the dark energy inside Rada is almost identical to the liquidators. This means Bradley definitely used the same corrupted crystals they found earlier. But it gets worse. Rada was not actually defeated by Gray's strike. The dark power surged right then, completely stripping Rada of his sanity and body, but Ariel is highly intelligent, and she easily puts things together. Rada being there was no accident. Someone explicitly sent him to eliminate Gray, pure revenge for Bradley, and if Rada was actually being controlled after that professor's death, Bradley was not the ultimate mastermind. A third party is pulling strings, someone with access to academy databases and deep ties to that illegal, dark research. For now, all they can do is keep investigating, but Ariel's gut says the real culprit has to be a powerful, high-ranking academy official, meaning they must tread carefully, for now. She commends Gray for utilizing his mysterious power without destroying his own soul. Then she reveals that Hector decided it is time to move to the next immediately, which will let him take his ability even further. Now watch. Gray stands in the middle of the field, surrounded by hundreds of armored dummies. From a distance, Hector and his team warn Gray that this method is incredibly painful and dangerous. He must clearly state he agrees to everything about to happen. They also remind him there are safer, much slower paths, but Gray says he is ready to take the risk. Pushing forward, he closes his eyes and focuses intently on his last attempt, trying to move his body as if it were part of the sword itself. Because of that, dark energy slowly starts surging through him, wrapping around both the blade and his body. Then he opens his eyes again, whispers, "Here I come," and instantly starts shredding through the dummies. His movements are so smooth it looks like his blade is moving with the wind itself, but there is still a limit. And before he can destroy every single target on the field, his body collapses. Thankfully, that is why the medical experts are here. They coordinate their healing magic, forcing his body back up within minutes. Gray thanks them, and Hector praises him too, with every attempt. He can maintain that power a bit longer. If this keeps up, one day he will be able to fight full battles without his physical form collapsing. Previously, he was completely focused on surviving, so he never noticed the toll. But Gray finally admits that using this power hurts every inch of his body. Hector insists that is actually a great sign. It is proof he is shattering his limits. Still, he tells Gray that if he wants to slow down, all he has to do is ask. Gray immediately refuses, ready for another round, but right then Ariel cuts in. She warns that they can only use this brutal training once a day because his nervous system needs time to recover, even with healing magic. If he pushes too far, he could permanently lose the ability to swing his sword. For once, Hector actually agrees, and the three continue talking until one of the healers asks why Gray is so desperate to obtain more power. Ariel explains that the dangerous factions behind Bradley are hunting him down, so he must prepare for the worst. What happened with Rodo was only the beginning, and Bloodbrinker's potential involvement makes things far worse. Getting stronger is his only path to survival. Once again, Ariel apologizes for dragging him into this mess, but Gray insists that stopping the liquidator experiments was his own choice, and he is ready for whatever comes. Luckily, Ariel has a much simpler trick up her sleeve to help a swordsman grow. The solution is simple: change the sword, even if his academy blade is high quality. It is pretty obvious it won't handle his massive surge of power for very long. Honestly, with all his locked potential, she doubts any ordinary weapon could survive his grip. Still, they have to try, so she decides to take him to Ravat to pick one out. Hector immediately objects, warning her that she is going too far because Gray is not ready yet. Ariel completely ignores him as a magical door suddenly swings open out of thin air. She insists he has fully earned this right, leading them straight through a glowing portal. They step directly into a colossal treasure room where every single corner is stuffed with wealth, We are talking heaps of gold, priceless jewels, and even some pretty strange glowing potions. The vault is so ridiculously massive that even Ariel forgets the way to the weapon racks. Once they finally arrive, she tells Gray they need a blade that perfectly matches his raw power. Hector notes this is easily the biggest sword collection in the world, which is kind of overwhelming. With so many weapons, it is hard to even know where to start looking. So Ariel chooses a safe strategy, testing just one sword a day at maximum strength. Since his power limits them to one true attempt daily, they narrow down the best choices first. To kick things off, Ariel pulls out a massive claymore, easily the sharpest blade in the room. Gray tests it out, taking a heavy swing at a giant wooden log nearby. To everyone's absolute shock, he splits it clean in half without even activating his special ability. Talk about raw, unbridled power. The impact literally cracks the solid stone floor. It is an incredible weapon, but honestly, way too heavy for his fighting style. Hector rightly points out that a weapon is useless if you can barely swing it. Still, against slow, massive beasts, it would be perfect, so Ariel tells him to keep it. She even tosses him a magic storage bag, so he does not have to drag it around. At first, Gray hesitates, feeling like he does not deserve such a generous gift for free. But Ariel quickly pushes back, saying it is better off with him than gathering dust here. Besides, they have no clue what kind of danger is coming his way. Especially now that Bradley's mysterious boss has taken a personal interest in him. If he were guaranteed to never need it, she would not push this hard. With even a tiny chance of survival, he has to take it. That makes Gray think back to his brutal days in the war, where nothing ever felt like enough. With that heavy thought in mind, he finally accepts the blade and thanks her properly. Hector quickly warns him to keep it hidden, since it is worth 10,000 gold coins. Gray nearly suffers a heart attack on the spot and instantly tries to hand it back. But Ariel absolutely refuses, making it clear this is a permanent gift, not a loan. She just wants him to fight without holding anything back, so he needs to forget the price. If that still bugs him, he can just treat it as a reward for helping her out. Gray tries to protest one more time, but the fierce redhead shuts him down immediately. So the stubborn idiot finally thanks her properly. Now, on to the next challenge. They still need a more practical, everyday weapon for regular combat. Something he can use in standard duels against regular human opponents. As they search, Gray admits he never expected her personal vault to be this insane. Hector smiles, telling him this is just a fraction of what her divine eye can do. That special eye spots massive business opportunities and hidden value that others completely miss. It makes her filthy rich, but Ariel tells them to stop. As the sword instructor, Hector gets the nod to choose the next blade. After scanning the racks, Hector points out a pretty simple weapon. It is incredibly light, allowing Gray to move with unbelievable speed. But it feels way too basic, like something is definitely off here. Gray thinks he might be imagining things, but Hector notices the mismatch too. It simply is not a good fit, so they move to the next contender. This one features striking blue details, instantly catching the young warrior's eye. He is so impressed that he immediately blabs out a question about it. That is just the beginning. The moment he lifts it, it feels weightless. Stranger still, he runs a finger down the blade and remains completely unharmed. It has no edge whatsoever. This thing was designed just to test new tech. That makes it totally blunt, but incredibly tough, a very weird combination. But wait, this might actually be exactly what Gray needs. Sharpness does not matter when his raw power can shatter ordinary steel anyway. Other blades might work for now, but eventually they will just break. They will hold him back. Ariel believes the key to his training is edge-free combat. He must learn to fight without relying on a razor-sharp edge. This blunt sword will let him unleash his strength without any limits holding him back. She proves her point by slamming the blade into a heavy test block. It does not cut, but the pure kinetic force almost pulverizes the target. Ariel is not completely sure it is a winner, but admits it is worth a shot. He can test any weapon he wants, even those that are not standard swords. That gets Gray excited. He could spend hours examining all these different weapons. Suddenly, a beautiful emerald-colored blade catches his eye on the rack. He reaches out to grab the emerald blade, but stops completely. Pure instinct pulls him toward another weapon he completely missed earlier. It is a long, slim blade that feels oddly familiar to him. He asks Ariel about it, and she explains a former student left it behind. It is not famous or legendary, but the craftsmanship is absolutely stellar. She is totally right. The moment Gray grips the hilt, it feels incredibly natural. Now look at this, it fits him perfectly, leading to the best part. With a single swing, he slices right through a heavy test block. The flow is incredibly smooth, catching both Hector and Ariel by surprise. It is as if this blade was forged specifically for him. Seeing his sheer excitement, Ariel adds it to their official testing list. They still need to test if it can handle his immense power. Gray agrees, though he feels a bit guilty about potentially ruining someone's old gear. Ariel tells him that is the absolute last thing to worry about. Then she drops a bombshell. The previous owner is Metalam Norm. He is currently a nobody, but he will eventually become the world's greatest blacksmith. A few days pass, and it is finally time to start the tests. They plan to push every weapon to its absolute limit to test their durability. First up on the chopping block is the blade with the blue details. At first, the weapon handles perfectly, but the moment Gray channels his power, everything suddenly cuts off, leaving him completely locked out of his own energy. Even weirder is how it keeps happening, no matter how intensely he focuses his mind. It is so bizarre that Ariel asks if he feels any physical changes inside his body. He feels fine. That means the blade itself must be causing it. They decide to shelve it for now and move directly to the final blade he found. This seemingly ordinary sword might actually turn out to be his absolute perfect weapon. Once more, the young man begins the routine he has been sharpening over the past few days. He tells himself to become one with the blade, then releases a massive surge of energy. This time, the great news is that he does not just activate the power. The energy actually holds. Everything seems perfectly fine until a faint whisper echoes in his ear. He whips his head around instantly, assuming his mind is just playing tricks on him. But the voice keeps speaking, and it is coming directly from the sword itself. Standing further back, Hector and Ariel notice nothing unusual, so the test carries on. Gray charges forward, trying to slice down as many training dummies as possible. The raw power feels identical, but this blade allows him to control it smoothly. Even better, his entire body feels impossibly light, allowing him to move like the wind. He pushes forward at a blistering speed that completely stuns the watching healers. But they quickly spot something else. He is not merely running fast anymore. It looks as though he is literally flying across the battlefield. Gray turns to slash the next target, only to realize none are left standing. In his past attempts, he would collapse from exhaustion after clearing just half of them. Every single one is gone, wiped out in record time. Yet Ariel and the spectators stare in horror, wondering how he is even standing. Wait, hold on, his chest is physically torn wide open. A massive wound, as if a sword pierced him straight through. Terrified, the red-headed girl screams for him to drop the weapon, and he lets go. Instantly, the blinding pain hits his chest the moment the metal leaves his hand. Healers rush over, casting wave after wave of restorative magic on his body. Yet even with their help, he shivers violently and can barely keep his balance. Ariel warns him that even high-level magic cannot instantly replace massive blood loss. She orders him to sit down, as he just crossed unthinkable physical boundaries. While this breakthrough is promising, moving around in this state is suicidal. Ignoring his critical injuries like this is a quick way to find a grave. He will definitely need a personal healer watching his back from now on. Fighting so recklessly is far too dangerous, but at least the sword is intact. Not a scratch, no dents. Its polished surface remains completely pristine. Examining the weapon with her mystic eyes, Ariel notices it glowing even brighter. It is almost as if the cursed blade thoroughly enjoyed the violent clash. Suddenly, she notices a strange movement in the reflection near the main towers. Looking up toward the academy, she watches the massive spires explode into dust. Rain of burning stone descends on them, sending the students into absolute panic. In response, the academy instructors quickly band together to summon a massive shield. The barrier expands to protect everyone, though Gray himself never saw this coming. Hector quickly warns them that the destroyed sector housed highly dangerous relics. This means someone deliberately triggered the explosion to breach the vault. Even worse, he senses a lingering trace of high-level teleportation magic. The vault, that entire place, was designed to block teleportation magic. But Ariel sensed liquidator energy mixed within the heavy smoke. Secret lab crystals, they likely used them to blast the wall open. With the field disabled, they made their move. This attack was planned. Bradley's allies, forces so insanely confident they struck the academy core. A direct, brazen assault. Days later, Ariel brings Gray some updates. The official investigation confirms it. This was absolutely a major theft. Information is scarce, but since the culprits shattered the teleport blockers and vanished effortlessly, she is absolutely certain this was an inside job. Inside job, meaning the academy is no longer an ally they can trust. She honestly wonders if they were ever truly on their side. But Gray sees it differently. He notices a massive flaw in her theory. If the enemy ruled the academy, they would steal silently, without explosions. No drama, no messy heists. They resorted to force because they had to. Theft was their only option. This whole mystery is getting incredibly bizarre. Even so, Ariel suspects the blue drinkers are orchestrating this chaos. This open show of force feels like a brutal, direct warning. They are marked. Gray is in danger, huge danger actually. He must stay extremely alert, both on and off academy grounds. That thought leaves Gray with a dark, deeply unsettling feeling. Walking into class, he feels the entire room vibrating with nervous tension. He assumes it is lingering shock from the explosion, but actually, he is completely wrong. They are terrified of the upcoming outdoor marching drill. Spotting Gray's calm demeanor, Leon Hart assumes he missed the warning. But Gray knows there is no way he would ignore this assignment. A brutal week-long march through a forest crawling with high-level monsters. 16 straight hours of trekking just to move between survival camps. Sleep is a luxury, with deadly predators tracking their every move. While the class panics, Gray remains entirely unfazed by the threat. Over half the first years typically drop out during this single test. What they do not know is that Gray survived far worse. In his past training, recruits were abandoned in lethal wilderness with zero aid. Just raw survival against hundreds of beasts that slaughtered his peers. Hearing this leaves Leon Hart absolutely awestruck, ultimate fanboy mode activated. Still, seeing their intense panic makes Gray rethink his casual attitude. Maybe he is underestimating the dangers waiting in those dark woods. He decides to prepare. Soon, the day of the exercise arrives. Hector warns them all, fail this test and you fail the year. There are no second chances. Complete the march or get left behind. Gray looks out. They are standing at the frozen continent's border. A breathtaking, beautiful wilderness, yet totally devoid of any human life. He wonders why it is so empty, but answers are coming. Hexern, their supervisor, suddenly redirects the group toward an alternate route. He leads them straight into an uncharted, pitch-black section of the forest. Hours slip away as they trek deeper into a maze of massive trees. The real blow hits when the students ask how much farther they have to go, only to find out they are barely halfway. The instructors try to cheer them up, claiming everyone eventually adjusts to the brutal pace. Classmates notice Leon Hart, the guy is not even breaking a sweat. But the blonde guy is shocked by the protagonist's insane stamina. He has not slowed down his pace, even once during their entire 8-hour march. But the most terrifying moment comes when a girl is suddenly cornered by a massive spider, but he reacts instantly, throwing a lethal dagger to end it. It dies instantly. Talk about lightning-fast reflexes. He is doing way more than just keeping pace. His focus is locked tight onto their surroundings, leaving absolutely no room for any surprise attacks. No openings, total readiness. Gray, on the other hand, remains completely unfazed. To him, this hike is nothing compared to the literal hell he already survived. It is not the monsters that bother him, but their exposure and the academy. Tracking them, to him, this is the perfect setup for a sudden ambush. Any assassin could strike. Thankfully, the instructors call a halt. This is not their final destination, however, but the start of a new lesson. From here on out, they must complete a survival exercise involving their food. Naturally, the class has no clue what that implies, exchanging confused glances, and then suddenly they start cheering. Surely, a massive, delicious feast is waiting for them. Gray, however, is highly skeptical. Honestly, you can't blame him. When did school ever give free food? Just a meal, they would say so plainly. Calling it training means trouble. His suspicions are confirmed when the teacher explains how things actually work here. On marches like this, the students must do all the actual cooking themselves. As part of their test, they have to split into different squads, gather their equipment, and prepare their own meals. The instructor summons the gear. Suddenly, the main character is appointed leader of Squad D. His team includes Basque, Rumia, and Venice, making him incredibly anxious. He worries they will not respect him, but his fears are quickly put to rest. Surprisingly, the trio approaches him with warm, friendly smiles and pure respect. No complaints, no trash talk about him skipping the regular entrance exam. In fact, he is the one who hesitantly asks if they are truly okay. With him leading, and they immediately agree without a single second of hesitation. His display the other day proved he is easily one of the strongest freshmen here. As they work, Gray realizes his hard training is finally paying off. But things take a bizarre turn when they crack open their designated supply crate. There are no actual food supplies inside, just a basic pot and a simple lighter. They assume it is a mistake. However, the teacher quickly clarifies. In real combat, you do not get cozy meals or proper kitchen gear. Be glad you even have a pot. You are on your own. Leonhardt points out that modern operations rely on magical storage for survival gear. But the teacher replies that spatial magic is only for pre-planned missions. During a surprise battle, or if your supply officer gets killed, you survive alone. The only alternative is facing a slow, helpless death in the wild. Besides, high-end spatial storage bags are completely out of budget for average soldiers. This lesson is critical. Today, they learn the hard way. Leonhardt quickly apologizes, and Gray begins to formulate his strategy. Appreciate that magic bag Ariel gave him for his sword a bit more. The point is they must head straight into the forest to find their own supplies. The good news is that it won't be too hard now. Up until this point, the teachers have been using a special spell to keep monsters away, but they drop it right now so the food will come straight to them, but to eat them they first have to defeat them, just like that with a tiny snap. That cozy safety completely vanishes. In its place comes a cold, creeping unease of knowing multiple beasts are watching them from the shadows with pure killing intent. Nervous, the other students ask Gray what they should do, and he says it is pretty simple: hunt the monsters and eat them. The good news is that he has been studying the trail very carefully, judging by the tracks. Most of the creatures seem medium or small, so their swords should be enough. As for the hunting plan, it is not actually that complicated. Since these creatures are carnivores, they will come looking for them. They just need to react in time and fight. Basically, they have to act as bait. The key is moving fast, because if they stay put, they will end up competing with rival squads. For prey, sure, they could eat bugs, but while the others want real meat. Gray's sharp survival instincts guide his team deep into a remote corner of the forest. They track a fresh trail until he suddenly realizes what is ahead. They have found the perfect prey, though nobody expected it to be this massive. A giant bear monster is charging straight at them, ready to rip them apart. Naturally, Gray is already fully prepared for this kind of threat, but the others are completely terrified, freezing up since this is the first time they have ever faced a real monster up close. Worse yet, the beast is much faster than they anticipated. Somehow, they still manage to dodge it just in time, and their bodies react almost purely on instinct to each wild attack. The pink-haired boy realizes this is exactly what he has been training for all this time, dodging another devastating strike. He takes his turn, driving his blade deep into the monster's neck, or so it seems, because right when he thinks he has the beast cornered, it swings a massive paw. He does not even notice until it is mere inches from his face. Luckily, Gray reacts just in time, severing the entire paw in one clean, brutal motion. That triggers a wild, violent reaction from the beast, with Gray knocked flat on his back right beside it. The monster lashes out with a blow that would have been fatal, but Gray already anticipated its desperation. In a matter of mere seconds, he completely decapitates the rampaging beast. From a distance, his teammates witness the whole thing, unable to believe how easily he pulled that off. Honestly, he is built different. He quickly helps the pink-haired boy back up, who immediately thanks him for the save. But Gray warns them not to let their guard down yet. Even dying monsters can strike back after a fatal wound, instead of just focusing on the kill. Everyone must prioritize staying alive. These are wild beasts that fight to the bitter end. Shortly after, they cook up the bear meat, and it tastes surprisingly good. Gray explains that the quality of monster meat changes drastically from species to species. Some are quite delicious, but others are straight up poisonous, so he advises them to always check the local species database before any mission. Surprised, Rumia asks if he trained in survival, and Gray says he knows a bit. He is no expert, though. They keep talking until another squad suddenly shows up. They struggled to find prey, big time, so they beg for some food. Gray checks with his squad first, then happily agrees to help them out. But before they can hand over anything, the professor suddenly appears out of nowhere. He warns them that sharing food is strictly forbidden, dragging the unlucky squad away. Not long after, they gather again. Time to march, another long 16 hours. It is a 16-hour hike to the next destination, and exhaustion is highly obvious. No rest, no recovery. Unlike Gray's team, the others are completely dead. Finally, the professor calls a halt to camp here, which is great news. They finally get portable rations and personal tents to rest comfortably. The catch: a surprise attack drill tonight. Get ready, because it gets worse. Every squad has to design its own defense plan, using any method they want. Some idiots decide to just sleep and use other squads as dynamic alarms. They figure they will wake up whenever they hear someone else screaming. But the professor already anticipated that, placing each team in totally separate areas. No cheating, no shortcuts. Nobody gets to ride on anyone else's coattails. So the second training exercise begins, and the squads set up camp. Gray's team decides having 2 people on watch is the safest option. But that cuts their sleeping time in half, so they settle on a single guard. They will rotate the shifts throughout the night. Deciding the order is a mess. After a lot of arguing, Gray ends up with the second watch. Bask, that pink-haired guy, takes the third shift. Everything seems pretty quiet. Rumia takes the first shift, easy enough, or so she thinks. Suddenly, a shadow moves. A figure with a blade creeps closer. The major issue here: she is already nodding off, fighting a losing battle. She hears absolutely nothing, but the intruder accidentally snaps a small twig. Inside the tent, Gray jolts awake. Something is wrong, very wrong. No animal moves that carefully. It must be human. He peeks outside. Seeing that Rumia has not reacted at all makes him highly suspicious. Instantly, that warning Ariel gave him during their last meeting flashes in his mind. The shady faction backing Bradley is definitely coming for his head. This might just be a drill, but he cannot afford to take chances. Could it be a real assassin? Maybe. He quietly slips out. Scanning the area under the bright moonlight, he looks for clues. Tracking the faint signs brings back vivid memories of his past training. Jacob, the legendary divine archer, taught him how to move in complete silence. He stressed that the true problem was not the noise itself, but the nature of it. Making sounds that felt too human would instantly give his position away. The goal was blending in with nature, becoming one with the quiet woods. Thanks to those lessons, Gray creeps up and catches the stalker red-handed. Before the intruder can even react, Gray presses a cold blade to his throat. Do not move, not if you want to walk away from this alive. Answer me, one wrong move, and Gray will end him right here. Gray demands his name and faction, and then the shock hits. The figure turns around. It is the professor, sneaking around the camp for a surprise attack drill. Naturally, he never expected this, not from one of his very own academy students. To jump him like that, catch him off guard, hold a blade to his throat. He showed incredible control, high skill, and perfect awareness out in the open. But Gray is paranoid. He still cannot help but wonder about the man's identity. Is this actually an assassin disguised as their teacher? He knows the threat is real. Still, a real killer would surely bring something far deadlier than a simple knife. So Gray hesitates. He waits a few tense seconds before finally backing away. But right then, Rumo interrupts them. She apparently stepped out to check the area. She is completely stunned to find the two of them standing together like that. They quickly explain everything. The professor admits it is his first time seeing this. Seeing first-year students this prepared, so prepared he assumes they had help. He assumes they had two lookouts. That detail immediately catches Gray's attention. He explains he only came out because he heard a strange sound nearby. Gray asks if the instructor was the one who snapped a twig. Luckily, it was. The teacher never imagined they would detect him from such a tiny mistake. Gray simply claims he is a light sleeper, which makes the older man laugh. He has been keeping an eye on Gray. Since day one, the boy surprises him. He has delivered shock after shock, leaving the teacher wondering about his limits. Is there anything left to teach him? The professor makes a sudden decision. Gray is officially banned from night watch duties during this training trip. Otherwise, his teammates will never learn to protect themselves. Worried, the young man asks if that will leave the others sleep-deprived. The professor has a fix. He will not attack during Gray's scheduled hours. That way the others can sleep and still prove themselves. Simple as that. On top of that, the teacher awards Gray a perfect score for this test. He instantly gets a solid 10, and with that, the matter seems settled. But let's be honest, things are never that easy. There's a catch. As the instructor walks away, he cannot stop wondering about the boy's past. Did Gray undergo special training? What exactly he might be hiding? Who is he really? With all those heavy questions lingering, the next day arrives. He gathers the exhausted class to continue their grueling march through the forest. Severe lack of sleep and physical weariness quickly start to take their toll. The students push through anyway. They keep walking all the way until sunset. Finally, they reach the next campsite, but everyone is completely worn out. They are absolutely terrified of what brutal trial might be coming next. Fortunately, the instructor tells them to relax. Today's training is officially over. No more exhausting trials. They do not even have to pitch their tents. He set up everything beforehand, allowing them to rest comfortably until dinner. Yes, dinner. While the students sleep peacefully, the teachers prepare a feast. A massive, delicious spread is waiting, but Gray is still highly uneasy. This sudden kindness is suspicious. He knows tomorrow is going to be absolute hell. Right beside him, Leon Hart is confident that Gray will survive anything. They chat quietly until the instructor announces that dinner is finally served. They step out to find a table absolutely packed with delicious, steaming food. With the promise they can eat as much as they want, he even praises them for their brutal hard work over the last few days, but his actual expression screams that this is way too good to be true. Sure enough, the next morning the teachers announce the absolute worst news: the real test is about to begin. In the most lethal zone they could possibly find, they must cross the terrifying Gascha mountain range. It is a brutal environment, but things actually go pretty smoothly at first. Fully rested, the kids have their energy back and maintain a nice, steady pace. Once again, everything feels completely fine. Until the sudden warning hits. In just 2 kilometers, they will enter the territory of the water lizard. This beast is far deadlier than any opponent they have faced. Up to this point, it can end a human life in seconds, so they must move like ghosts because a single sound means instant death. Even though these lizards look passive, they are absolute bloodthirsty killers. Right away, Gray realizes this brutal setup feels exactly like his harsh training under Jacob, so he sneaks forward using those specialized survival steps. The professor immediately recognizes the technique as something only an elite, highly experienced monster hunter could pull off. Meanwhile, the other rookies stumble around so clumsily, it is painful to watch. The professor snaps and tells them to pick up the pace. Gray thinks that is incredibly reckless, because these rookies are walking straight into a death trap. Still, they push forward until they enter the absolute deepest part of the lizard territory. There, the teacher commands complete silence, absolutely no talking, but strangely, the forest is so quiet that the students start relaxing. One overconfident guy even convinces himself that the terrifying rumors about the lizards are just a big lie, designed to scare them. After all, why would the school endanger untrained kids like this? This logic becomes his final, massive mistake. Distracted and completely careless, he loses his footing and faceplants hard onto the rocky ground. For a brief second, the fool thinks he will just lose some academy points. No big deal, right? Oh, he could not be more wrong. Because in a heartbeat, dozens of hungry predators emerge from the shadows. The monsters launch a full, bloodthirsty charge straight at the terrified group. A beast leaps forward, ready to tear the fallen student into bloody shreds. When Hector flashes in, he drives his blade straight through the monster's skull. The impact is so heavy the earth literally cracks, but this is just the beginning of their worst nightmare. As soon as Hector pulls his sword free, another creature strikes. Leon Hart immediately springs into action, executing a lightning-fast, confident slash. Clean strike that should have easily split the beast in half, except the monster's hide is ridiculously thick. Its armored scales deflect the blade with a loud clang, and the massive lizard escapes without taking a single scratch. In an instant, the beast is right in his face, putting Leon Hart at a terrifying disadvantage. Fortunately, Hector jumps in to cover him, shouting that this fight is way too dangerous for students. He orders everyone to retreat while the teachers handle the threat. That sounds like a solid plan, except even the pros are struggling to pierce those thick hides. The truly insane part is that, despite only landing shallow cuts, they somehow manage to drop the beasts. Then, the mustache professor explains that during summer, these water lizards carry a highly with barely any water in their bodies, even a tiny bit of blood loss is fatal. One kid asks if they could have fought these things during the wet season, and the mustache man scoffed they would all be dead. That is precisely why they train during this specific season. After that, the group keeps moving until they finally reach the peak, and Hector praises them. Despite the close call, they made it. Leon Hart admits the toughest part was not the grueling trail itself, but the sheer stress of moving in absolute silence. And that is the exact goal of this exercise, which becomes obvious when looking at Gray. He is totally calm since battlefield survival trained him. Even so, Hector tells them they are doing far better than previous classes. Before advancing, he asks if there are any questions. Once they push forward, they enter enemy territory and cannot speak. But here is the thing, Gray does not have a question, he has a warning. Out in the distance, he spots a massive dark cloud rolling their way. And with the wind picking up, you just know bad news is coming next. Hector takes this seriously, immediately asking Wormhill if rain is possible during this season. The teacher claims it should be impossible, but looking where Gray pointed, he can see the threat coming. This is bad news. With that in mind, Hector decides they must retreat immediately and call off the session. The main priority is escaping the lizard territory as fast as they can. But surprisingly, Wormhill disagrees. He insists the cloud is far too small to worry about, demanding they push forward. Hector argues even a single cloud now is highly suspicious, but the stubborn mustache teacher, whose name is Wormhill, is fully backed by the other professors. They remind Hector that Wormhill has led this drill for years, so they must trust him. Wormhill adds that if Hector is so terrified, they will just move faster, ordering students to run like their lives depend on it. Of course, they cannot waste time fighting any beasts, meaning absolute silence is crucial. The major issue is, just like Hector feared, less than 10 minutes pass before the sky opens up, something completely unnatural for this dry season. It is so bizarre, Hector wonders if someone is artificially causing this storm. And to make matters worse, Wormhill starts loudly complaining about how shocked he is, completely ignoring the silence rule. So Gray walks right up to the teacher and demands he shut up. But the arrogant fool keeps blabbering until the inevitable happens. A water lizard lunges from behind him, ready to tear him apart. Worse, as predicted, this beast is incredibly fast. Wormhill barely manages to throw himself out of the way. Still, he avoids the direct strike and draws his weapon to slash back, impaling the monster's arm and drawing a heavy spray of blood, but it doesn't drop. Instead, it grows even more vicious, staring at him like he made a fatal mistake. A split second later, the beast retaliates, whipping its tail. Wormhill drives his blade deep once more, but it is not enough. The massive impact launches him straight through the trees, slamming him hard against a giant boulder. He struggles to his feet after several painful seconds, visibly trembling. Of course, the trainees are in complete shock that an instructor is losing this easily. Even Gray notes that a proper combatant should have easily dodged that hit. This means the scaly beast is way stronger than anything they have faced before. By now, it's totally clear that all the terrifying warnings about water lizards were true. So the surviving instructors quickly assemble a battle formation to pin it down, creating a 4-on-1 showdown where they theoretically hold all the advantage. But the issue is that despite landing precise, coordinated strikes directly on the beast's vital spots, it shrugs off the damage and keeps attacking. In a flash, it tears straight through Wormhill's guard, slamming the helpless teacher flat onto the wet dirt. And this time, the creature moves even faster, lunging forward instantly to deliver a fatal strike. But Hector steps in just in time, swinging his massive blade to slice through its neck with one clean strike. Things have gotten so incredibly desperate right now that even the elite fighters look shocked they actually pulled it off. Hector quickly warns that there is absolutely no time to relax. Not even their instructors can survive this downpour completely unharmed. The mustached teacher nods and urges a female colleague to cast an emergency teleportation spell so they can quickly escape before things get even worse. The problem is, she's already been trying for a while, and for some reason it simply refuses to work. The others try too, but get the same result. It's clear that someone is actively blocking their magic on purpose, and combined with the fact this heavy rain started when it should be totally impossible, it can only mean whoever set this trap is hunting them down, specifically this entire expedition. Feeling cornered, Mermerl starts to panic, asking what to do next. Another veteran instructor warns that marching through the area in this rain is absolute suicide. So, maybe they should set up camp and wait out the storm. That sounds reasonable. Except if this rain is artificial, there's a high chance it won't stop. Until they're all dead, that chilling realization sparks an incredibly heated argument over their options. Since both choices carry heavy risks, trapped and desperate, Gray steps up to speak. He promises that as long as they can provide healing magic, he can fight. With his shadow power, their odds of surviving go way up. Hector readily admits he's right. But neither can guarantee the boy will survive all the way to the exit. Still, staying put means certain death, despite the danger of overusing his abilities. Gray insists this crisis is the perfect chance to train in a real life or death situation. It's also their only option, but when Hector tries to reject the idea, Gray corners him, asking if he really values his own life over the dozens of students who will die if they do nothing. That warning instantly reminds Hector of the warning Ariel gave him regarding the boy's reckless habit of trying to sacrifice himself. He also vividly remembers the desperate expression on her face when she pleaded with him to keep Gray safe. Even so, he has no choice but to accept the plan. But right then, they are cut off by Wormel, who loudly insists it's absolute madness to trust so many lives to one student. Hector counters that they haven't seen the full extent of Gray's power yet. With options running thin, he suggests they take this huge gamble together. Hearing this, some of the instructors begin to hesitate, but Wormel refuses to budge. Instead, he orders several teachers to immediately use communication magic to send a quick, urgent rescue request directly to Academy headquarters, believing it is safer to wait than try escaping. But wait, even though communication signals are heavily blocked by the enemy. The teacher he asked firmly insists he somehow managed to get the message sent through. Instead of keeping the peace, Wormel accuses Hector of being totally reckless, claiming he is risking the students as the tension flares up. Hector fires back that those monsters could strike again at any second before backup arrives, yet everyone seems to side with Wormel, who ends the argument by demanding they stay put, so they wait. They wait for a miracle, but with every passing second, the panic only deepens. Strangely, the only one remaining completely calm is Wormel. He does not even react to the rustling noises in the forest. Those shadows mean the lizard beasts have finally come for them. Luckily, Hector acts instantly. He drops right into his battle stance, ordering Gray to stay back unless things get truly desperate. Gray nods, and then the professors launch their second round of combat. A beast leaps forward. It manages to wound one teacher before Hector and Wormel end it together, driving a dual strike deep into its chest. That small victory makes them think they are safe. They are dead wrong. The loud clash draws in two more beasts. Watching this, Leonhardt and several of students draw their weapons immediately, but Hector stops them. He tells them to hold back. The professors still have plenty of fight left in them. The kids should watch how elite masters operate. Instantly, their focus sharpens. They shift back into that earlier combat formation to handle both enemies at once. Even Leonhardt is stunned by their lack of hesitation. Still, this is a brutal, exhausting struggle. Brutal clash that forces them to focus on one single target first before moving to the next. Hector keeps one of the beasts busy, striking it repeatedly in order to open the perfect gap for Wormel to plunge his sword into its heart. The students cheer, but one monster remains and it is cornered. It roars with absolute fury, seeing the teachers barely hurt. Suffered barely any damage, Leonhardt figures they might actually hold the line. But that hope is instantly shattered, right in the middle of the chaotic struggle. Two shadows creep up behind Hector and the other teachers with absolute lethal intent. They close the distance fast, but before they can strike, Gray intercepts, severing their arms in a single flash. Yet the real shock comes when they see the attackers' faces. The traitors are Wormel and that glasses-wearing teacher who supported. Every single choice up to now, the nearly struck professor spins around and witnesses. Both traitors bleeding out on the ground, but he forces himself to focus on the creature at the same time. Hector thanks Gray for protecting them. With that, they bring the monster down. Then the real interrogation starts when they confront those bastards and demand to know their plan. Naturally, Wormel denies everything. He claims he was only trying to help slay the monster when Gray maimed him. His glasses-wearing ally screams, demanding Gray be arrested, but another professor calls them pathetic. He spits that everyone saw exactly where their blades were aimed. The students nod, whispering in horror as they realize they all saw the same betrayal. Sadly, this is not the first time this happens. Madness at the Academy is nothing new. It has always had plenty of enemies, but this is the first time the threat came directly from the teachers themselves. As for their motives, those snakes clearly planned to cover up the entire slaughter as a simple accident. It is still unclear if their goal was straight murder or something far worse. But one thing is absolutely certain: the kids are safe now, thanks to Gray. Standing tall, Gray tells Wormhole to drop the act. Both he and Hector have had their eyes on him for a while. That hits the traitor hard. He almost blabs, frantically asking if their plan somehow leaked, but Gray just smiles. Honestly, nothing leaked. They simply figured it out by watching his every move. Every strategic move Wormhole suggested conveniently left the students completely exposed. At first, Gray shrugged it off as pure incompetence, but then the rain started, exposing the truth. His movements turned incredibly stiff. The man suddenly began taking heavy hits that he could have easily dodged. He was deliberately putting on a pathetic show, just to blend in with the people who were genuinely fighting for their lives. The good news: Gray used his powers so briefly that he escapes any major backlash or pain. But get this, the nightmare is far from over. Wormhole starts laughing like a lunatic, mocking them for failing to realize that the real danger has barely even begun. Even with his cover blown, nothing actually changes. That cursed rain spell is still active. Monsters will keep swarming, and reinforcement is too far away. They are all destined to die here, yet he offers them a dirty way out. He will gladly spare the students, but only if Hector, Gray, and another teacher named Rent offer up their lives. Suddenly, a third accomplice leaps from the shadows, ready to strike them down, but Gray needs only a single fraction of a second to slip behind him, cold steel pressed against his throat with a silent warning. Even with a blade to his ally, Wormhole does not flinch. That is when Gray realizes this hostage is their teleportation magic expert. He is the key, the one who jammed the coordinates in this entire area. Force him to cooperate, and they can all escape this trap the right way. Hector smirks, admitting even he completely missed that vital piece of the puzzle. Calling Gray far too sharp for a mere student, Hector marches toward the hostage and presses his blade right against the man's eye, barking out a harsh command. Send everyone to the base of the mountain immediately. If he dares refuse, Hector promises to carve out his eye before slowly dismantling the rest of him. Gray steps in, adding his heavy aura to the threat, warning him not to play tricks. No leaving anyone behind. For the first time, Wormhole feels genuine terror creep in. He desperately yells out threats to keep his accomplice from cracking under pressure. But Hector takes a heavy step forward, absolute steel in his eyes. Just before the point can pierce his eyeball, the panic caster slams his palms down, igniting the magic, but they do not just end up at the mountain base. Instead, the spell rips them through space, throwing them all the way back to the Academy gates. But here is the real kicker: the desperate caster dragged everyone along with them, including Gray, the traitors, and the entire class. The whole battlefield gets dropped right back where their journey originally began. The sudden, chaotic arrival brings the palace guards running, utterly stunned to see the elite class return so soon. Without skipping a beat, Hector steps up to explain. They evacuate immediately because of an attempted murder by the teaching staff. Specifically, Wormold and the two magic professors working alongside him, with unbelievable audacity. The traitor tries to deny it, but the students call him out instantly. They testify that they would have died if Gray and Professor Hector had not exposed this conspiracy. Given the severity of the situation, the guards prioritize safety first, asking if anyone is injured. Everyone stays absolutely quiet. Even Wormold holds his tongue, knowing playing innocent is useless right now. The shocking part is that the guards do not just arrest the conspirators. They restrain everyone on the spot, dragging them off to a secure room to begin intense interrogation immediately, preventing any cover-up or escape by other accomplices. One by one, they are taken to an isolated chamber to give their statements. This grueling process drags on for hours. Then, without even waiting 24 hours, they are hauled into a courtroom for the final verdict. The headmaster starts by naming the core conspirators, pointing directly at Professor Wormold, the expedition leader, and Professor Valon, who is actually the vice headmaster, along with two magic professors from the backup squad who helped fake the emergency. It turns out the teacher who supposedly used the first teleport scroll to flee was a traitor too. She, Wormold, and the vice headmaster are convicted of helping execute this criminal plot repeatedly. There are zero mitigating circumstances here, and trust me, they deserve every bit of this. They are sentenced to death immediately, and investigators receive full clearance to torture them for any information regarding other accomplices linked to this. The message is clear: they will not be allowed a quick, painless death. Wormold pathetically begs them to just execute him, screaming to spare him from torture. The headmaster meets his desperate cries with absolute, icy silence. In a panic, the bastard tries to flee, but a guard brutally slams him down. Finally, the headmaster delivers a single, chilling command: take them away. The three are dragged off to the torture chambers, leaving only the teleportation mage, who surrendered at the end. Though he is still guilty, they value his cooperation. So after his interrogation, he will be spared and assigned to the Criminal Battalion, a penal unit where convicts fight in wars to reduce sentences. Sometime later, Gray meets with Hector, who apologizes that academy life has been so incredibly chaotic for him, but Gray is already accustomed to it. He is just shocked to find so many active criminals inside the academy, since he once viewed it as a sacred sanctuary. Hector counters that reality. In fact, the academy faces massive criticism for barely screening applicants, prioritizing raw combat strength over everything else. Gray admits he cannot say if that policy is right, but he knows the academy has made him far stronger than he ever thought possible. The institution may be corrupt, but there are still people here he can truly trust, and that is enough. His mature outlook makes Hector realize Gray is no ordinary student. Because of that, he issues a warning. The upcoming classes will be far more brutal, but they will force him to grow even stronger. Gray answers that that is the entire plan. Days later, Ren gathers the students, praising how they handled the bizarre training expedition. Sure, bad things happened, but they survived, which means one big thing. Basic physical training is over. It is time for stage 2. But before explaining what is next, he wants to show them their goal. He drags out a solid steel stake over 15 centimeters thick, a massive block of metal. He confidently makes a promise. Anyone who cuts this cleanly in one strike gets to jump straight to year 2. Anyone who fails must keep training. If they still cannot do it by the end of the term, they are expelled. The brutal truth is that every single year, half the class fails this test. That means only half of these rookies actually survive to see year 2. A worried girl speaks up, asking, what happens if they get expelled? The teacher laughs. It is not like they will die. They just transfer to local armies in their home countries. Most expelled students from the elite academy still become top-tier talents in smaller groups. If They do not want to study anymore. Royal Guard units welcome them with open arms, as do bounty hunter guilds. Essentially, surviving this far already proves they are special. It makes them truly superhuman. Gray silently remembers what Ariel once told him about the massive gap between this elite academy and the rest of the world. But regardless, instead of worrying about expulsion, Ren urges them to try cutting the steel stake. Let's be real, this looks totally impossible for their level. It really is, as the first student cannot even leave a scratch. Worse, he badly hurts his wrist and drops his weapon. That angers Ren. He declares that a true swordsman must hold his blade until death. Gray asks if there are any restrictions on weapon choice, wondering if Ariel's sword would work. The teacher instantly crushes that hope. Only standard academy swords are permitted for the trial. Gray knows his inner power could easily break it, but his personal pride stops him. If others did this with raw skill, he must do the same. Besides, if he reaches a level where he can conquer this, nobody will ever stand in his way, not even the liquidator. He simply needs to become much stronger. As if reading his mind, the instructor says they do not need magical tricks, only pure practice. 1. Critical skill separates amateurs from actual pros. Vital force infusion. That is the ultimate secret to advancing. They must master pushing their internal vital force directly into their cold weapons. Gray remembers hearing about this technique in his past life. Finally, he understands why warriors from this specific academy are so absurdly powerful compared to everyone else. Fortunately, Ren is ready to teach them. The training shortcut involves a demonic sword that actively drains their life force, forcing them to adapt to the sensation until it becomes natural instinct. He asks for a volunteer, but let's be real, who would touch a cursed blade? Naturally, only 2 brave students raise their hands. The first is Gray, desperate for immediate power, and the other is Leon Hart, still deeply frustrated that he was completely useless against the giant water lizard despite his top rank. The instructor chooses the proud blonde prodigy first. The second he touches it, he feels his life force slowly getting sucked out. As a complete novice, holding it too long is dangerous. The teacher demands he move fast. To everyone's complete shock, he actually cuts the stake. He cannot quite slice all the way through. Still, he leaves a deep cut. Everyone is seriously impressed, until he suddenly drops straight to the ground. The others quickly rush to help, but Ren tells them not to worry. Every single beginner goes through this first. They just need rest to regain the energy the sword drained. Ren is actually impressed Leon Hart lasted that long with it. That is expected of their top student. Next, Gray steps forward without a single moment of hesitation. Even after watching Leon collapse on the floor, he makes a single clean move, draws the blade, and immediately feels his vital energy draining by the second. So he quickly rushes to land his strike. To everyone's absolute surprise, he manages to cut almost the entire stake. Talk about impressive. Of course, he still has a long way to go. He quickly sheathes the blade before collapsing. Ren is completely stunned. No student has ever stayed standing after doing that. Gray silently credits Hector's training, which constantly pushes his body past its limit. Curious to see his limits, Ren asks him to try again. This time, however, he fails to leave even a scratch and drops straight down. His body was already completely empty. Ren uses this moment to explain that this secret technique is taught only at the elite World Academy. Then he asks the class why. Rumi quickly guesses it is far too dangerous. But the truth is, no one has actually died from it. Leon says, maybe it is because the sword is too valuable to leave somewhere ordinary. Ren says that is partly true, but not the main reason. These weapons have existed for decades. You can find them in common markets all over. They used to be widely used, and that ended up causing many deaths. Gray begins to realize the real danger is actually far more complicated. If you do not handle them properly, you could easily collapse mid-fight. And even if the blade does not kill you, you become easy prey. A smart enemy would easily end you. Ren says that is exactly right. That is why they only use them inside the academy for training. This helps students safely learn how to channel their own vital force into ordinary swords, gaining the demonic power without any of the dangerous side effects. If they perform well, they will even be allowed to practice alone. They just have to make sure they do not overdo it and collapse. Missing class because you passed out is forbidden. With that, the lesson ends. Gray remains on the ground a bit longer, comparing this to his own power. It is an amazing force, but useless without complete control. Even though he has improved, full power still requires someone nearby to help him recover. That will not work long-term in the real world. He needs something he can handle entirely on his own. He must grow stronger to handle the side effects. In that exact moment, he realizes coming to the academy was absolutely the right choice. For a second, he even wonders if he can combine this vital force with his own power. How far could he really go with that? With that exciting idea in mind, several days pass. Soon, Gray is training like absolute crazy with the sword. He still cannot cut the. He found a workaround though, letting him channel that power with only a brief recovery window in between. Just 3 minutes of rest. He is clearly starting to get the hang of it. With this progress, he decides it might be time to test his skills with a standard blade. But the assistant steps in and stops him right there, remembering Ariel's strict command to wait. She wanted to witness the exact moment he pulled it off. Gray is pretty surprised. Gray assumes she is far too busy and says he should not bother her. But the assistant reveals she cleared her entire schedule today just for this very moment. She knew he would master the blade today. Strangely, she does not come alone. The mysterious hooded woman comes with her, acting as a secret backup healer just in case. Gray asks no questions. He just readies the demonic blade. He wants to lock in the memory of that flow before trying a standard steel blade, focusing completely on replicating the feeling of his own vital force. It sounds abstract, but his fierce focus commands attention. She watches with intense interest as he pulls out a regular sword and focuses. He concentrates so deeply that a faint, blue aura of vital force becomes visible to her. The energy surges from his chest, traveling down his arm. It looks flawless, but a sudden violent rejection tears through him. Corruption surges out, proving the chaotic power inside him is the polar opposite of vital force. For a brief second, it looks like his arm will completely reject the energy and burst. But then the unthinkable happens. The two opposing forces begin to forcibly blend together. Inside his mind, the dark voice behind the sealed door starts whispering for more. It aggressively drags every single drop of vital force out of him like an absolute parasite. This energy acts just like a hypercharged demonic sword, locking him completely in place. He cannot release his grip, forcing Ariel to instantly issue a single, cold command. Just do it. Without a single moment of hesitation, the loyal assistant moves. Without a second thought, the assistant chops his arm off, which instantly turns to dust. Talk about cold calculation. Ariel actually expected this exact nightmare scenario. The hooded woman immediately steps forward, channeling an incredibly potent spell. The high-tier healing magic instantly stops the bleeding and begins to reconstruct lost limbs. Right before their eyes, Gray's arm begins to reform, starting with the white bone structure. Then the fresh muscle fiber binds, followed by smooth skin. It is a stunning display. The woman reminds her she only found this power because of Ariel. With her work finished, the mysterious healer quietly vanishes from the room. Hours slowly pass. Gray eventually wakes up completely disoriented. Luckily, Ariel is right there waiting. She asks if he remembers what happened, and Gray explains his arm went totally wild. The dark energy in his arm basically started devouring all his vital force. He remembers the assistant hacking it off, making his next discovery completely terrifying. Looking down, he freezes completely when he realizes his arm is perfectly fine and fully attached. Ariel assures him he did not miss anything, confirming that is exactly how it went. She gently hands him some fresh fruit to keep him quiet and help him heal. That is when Gray puts the pieces together. She knew this disaster was going to happen. She admits she has seen this before, explaining that Army also suffered the exact same failure. That is exactly why she wanted to be standing right there beside him today. He simply cannot believe what he is hearing from her. How could the legendary future sword Saint be unable to use vital force? He must know. Gray asks what happened to Army when she realized she could no longer use her power. Ariel explains that the girl's arm literally shattered into a million pieces, since they did not have to amputate it. The shock to her system was still incredibly severe, so bad, in fact, that she remains terrified to touch her life force. Naturally, that last part catches Gray's attention because it implies she can manage it now. Ariel confirms. It is true, but it required an immense amount of time, planning, and effort. They relied on a specialized contract magic to suppress her power. From there, she trained using only life force before they slowly eased the restriction, allowing both forces to safely coexist. In the end, she successfully learned to harness them completely. Independently, Gray grows incredibly excited, hoping this exact method could save him. But Ariel immediately shuts that hope down. Basic contract magic could never hope to suppress an energy as completely chaotic as his. They need a totally different solution, and no matter how hard they brainstorm, nothing comes to mind. Still, she believes. With enough intense dedication, he might isolate his life force, yet doing so would require extreme caution, and even then, the danger remains incredibly high. Gray insists he is ready to lose his arm 100 times if that is what it takes, suggesting they keep a top-tier healer on standby, but Ariel counters that he could simply walk away from using life force entirely. After all, his current strength is more than enough to breeze through his second year, but Gray wants far more, meaning stopping now is out of the question. As wild as it sounds, Ariel yields and promises to secure a healer and a capable assistant for his sessions while he concentrates on sensing and channeling his vital energy. Naturally, she warns him that this regimen will be absolutely brutal, far exceeding their previous sessions. Even with the risks, she trusts his potential. Few days later, the training grounds are active as some first-year students head out for a well-deserved break, only to spot Gray in the distance, relentlessly striking a massive steel stake. At first, they are in absolute disbelief. Channeling life force for this long without collapsing should be physically impossible. But what truly terrifies them is the rumor that he has been at it all. Morning, they try to convince themselves they must be mistaken about his crazy endurance. But right then, Gray unleashes one final strike and collapses. Later on, he wakes up and admits his raw approach of swinging until his body breaks his knot, delivering the results he wanted. Isolating his life force still feels completely out of reach, but just as frustration starts to take over, a terrifying vision of the liquidator flashes before his eyes, reminding him he cannot afford to falter. He has to keep pushing forward until he succeeds, driven by that fire. He launches into another strike. For the very first time, his blade slices clean through the solid metal, yet that is not even the most shocking part. Looking down at his hands, he realizes that in his state of total exhaustion, he accidentally grabbed an ordinary blade, yet still pulled off the impossible feat. As the severed metal clatters to the ground, Gray stands completely frozen in disbelief. Wondering if this miracle was just some fluke, he needs to test it immediately. He swings again, then again, and again, achieving the exact same perfect result. There is no denying it now. He has finally managed to isolate his life force, allowing him to use any regular blade without his dark energy interfering. He only changed one thing, letting go of the feeling to repeat the pattern. He pushed until his muscles moved purely on reflex, but he is not finished. Gray has to keep practicing, hard, until his body stops treating this like a special technique. He needs this movement to become his natural, default way of wielding a sword. Look at that, those same students from earlier saw everything, and they are completely stunned. They are confused because his style looks totally different from the professor's. Whether this change is a brilliant breakthrough or a disaster remains to be seen. Later that night, we see Gray at the dining table with other students, desperately recovering his spent energy. By this point, the wild rumor of his incredible sword mastery has already spread to everyone, which explains why that blonde guy cannot hide his shock at Gray's monstrous appetite. Constantly recovering his life force burns through an unbelievable amount of physical energy. The fact that he can shovel down this much food proves his training is on another level. Naturally, his ridiculous eating habits grab everyone's attention, though they all have very different reasons. Rumia does not care about his skills, she is only looking at the food. Specifically, she just loves the brilliant idea of eating absolutely anything without ever gaining weight. Their lighthearted chat is cut short when a sudden message arrives from Professor Ariel. The professor demands that Gray report to her office immediately. She has never summoned him like this before. Usually, they meet in secret, raising massive red flags. He worries that something terrible happened, and unfortunately, his dark suspicion is correct. Ariel explains that he has been officially selected for the highly prestigious Star Seer's special training. The official notice warns him to remain fully prepared for anything at any second. At any moment, he could be tossed headfirst into a real, deadly battle without any warning. This warning sounds so extreme that Gray asks if it is just a massive exaggeration. But Ariel is deadly serious. This is a trap. It ruthlessly throws the top students into lethal situations with absolutely zero support. Students must survive on raw strength alone. In the past, the candidates were teleported directly into dangerous hideouts with no escape. Until every single enemy was wiped out. No backup, no escape, just pure madness. Only a tiny handful of elite students ever made it back from that absolute hell alive. That is exactly why this horrific, deadly training has been banned for the last 10 years. Ariel is shocked they revived it and strongly urges him to refuse this invitation. But Gray refuses to run. He is absolutely staying. He believes that if they still use such a brutal method, it must actually work. So he asks Ariel if this nightmare will make him stronger and if he can survive. He tells her that if she is absolutely certain he will die, he will stay. But if she believes he has even a slight chance of surviving, he is going in. Ariel reluctantly admits that in her judgment, he actually does have a chance. Yet that does not change how many talented people have died in this trial. Her heavy tone tells Gray that she is remembering someone specific who did not make it. Ariel explains that 400 years ago, 2 special candidates were chosen for this. Just like Gray, they were incredibly gifted, promising young geniuses. She knew both of them personally, which makes Gray wonder about her real age. Ariel confesses that she personally let them go, fully believing they would be absolutely fine. But the brutal reality turned out far worse than anyone could have predicted. One candidate died, his body lost forever, while the other returned alive but completely broken. His lost arm never fully healed. For a swordsman, that is usually the end. Yet he kept going. He actually became one of the most famous warriors alive. But Ariel cannot help but wonder, how much further could he have gone? That is exactly why she is determined. She won't let Gray ruin his future. She refuses to let his massive potential be held back, not even by a fraction. Gray completely understands her deep fear, but he just looks at it very differently. What if that brutal training was exactly what made him so incredibly strong? Ariel already thought of that. She only brought up the legend to warn him. Her heavy silence speaks volumes. Gray instantly knows he has hit the nail on the head. Even so, Ariel keeps pushing. She warns him that this program has killed countless students. Joining it is basically as reckless as letting Bradley perform surgery on him. But honestly, that comparison backfires. It only makes him think of Bella's absurd upgrade. He remembers how insanely powerful she became after that operation in the alternate timeline. If he must take a gamble to reach that same peak level, he will do it. Sure, surviving is a prerequisite, but before he can even state his decision, they are interrupted. An academy assistant suddenly rushes in, delivering an urgent message from Central Command. These are the shadowy figures running the entire academy. Their word is absolute law. Even a renowned instructor like Ariel has never actually seen most of their faces. Frankly, she is not even sure they are human. She tells Gray to wait. Strangely, the letter is about him. They knew she would try to cancel everything. So the higher-ups decided to make a few things crystal clear right from the start. Apparently, there are two paths. One is safe, raising everyone to a decent level. The second path kills 8 out of every 10 students who dare to attempt it. But the two survivors emerge stronger than all 10 combined. Talk about a brutal trade-off. In a chilling tone, the letter asks which option she prefers, but it is a formality. They make it perfectly clear she has no authority to refuse. The choice is made. Gray is doing this. Bizarrely, the letter is signed with the name Professor Starsier. That happens to be the exact name of the brutal training program itself. This means whoever orchestrated this brought the dead program back specifically for him. What Ariel cannot wrap her head around is how they convinced Central Command. Why would the highest authorities back such an insane scheme for one kid? Ultimately, the only way to avoid this death trap is to leave the academy completely. Of course, running away is not his style. He is staying right here. Even so, Ariel deeply believes he could reach legendary heights just training under her. Her dread is palpable. She is completely stunned when Gray refuses to back down. If a mere school exercise can kill him, he stood no chance out there anyway. Realizing there is absolutely nothing left to argue about, Ariel finally drops her defenses. She candidly admits that the rare survivors of this program truly do make history. She withheld that truth because she desperately wanted to keep him from joining it. But now that it is locked in, her only wish is for him to survive. Gray looks her dead in the eye and promises that he fully intends to. Shortly after, the small group selected for this deadly test finally gathers together. The roster includes Gray, Leon Hart, the top second-year Lunial, and a senior named Bard. Bard is known as the absolute worst. Soon, the four are summoned to an empty room. There, a mysterious hooded woman explains that Professor Starsier never actually meets students in person. She represents him now and gets straight to the point. Their target is to destroy a human trafficking stronghold run by the Bloodbrinkers. Luckily, no captives are inside right now, keeping civilians out of harm's way, but they must remember. These bastards are ruthless. This operation only ends when every single enemy lies dead. Hearing this, Luniel questions if this is really a job meant for actual soldiers. The officer agrees, but explains that is precisely why they are being deployed. They need blood on their blades. Suddenly, Bard asks if they truly get zero supervision. She confirms it. They are going in completely raw with no external resources, no backup, and zero protection. They will not even be allowed to keep those defensive magic collars around their necks. Bard then points out that as a third-year student, he is already stronger than most academy instructors, but Leon Hart quickly reminds him that Gray already smashed 2 professors before. Ignoring the sudden tension, the officer states that if there are no more questions, deployment begins in exactly 2 hours. During that brief prep window, they must study the mission files. Glancing over them, Bard notices their insertion point sits dead center in enemy territory. That is not just dangerous. It defies logic, since a stronghold like this should have active anti-teleportation barriers blocking any outside entry. Gray asks how they can even bypass the security, and the officer explains that while the barrier exists, High Command managed to shatter a section from a distance, creating a breach lasting about 10 hours. They have to clear out the entire base before that window closes, but there is a massive catch. That heavy bombardment tipped off the syndicates. They are on high alert and bracing for an assault, making this operation incredibly lethal. Knowing the stakes, Bard suggests they immediately assemble a solid strategy. Leuniel agrees, urging the group to break down their individual combat skills. They need to coordinate, but Bard bluntly interrupts to say that is pointless. One look is enough for him to gauge their power levels. He even boasts that Leuniel would need 2 clones of himself just to stand a chance. As for Leonhart and Gray, he shrugs and puts them on the same tier. This arrogant attitude leaves the guys completely baffled. After all, they believed he was the absolute weakest third year. Reading their doubtful expressions, Bard dares them to try him right here. No training rules, no safety nets, just pure combat. Losing his temper, Leuniel lunges forward, aiming a swift strike from behind. Unbelievably, Bard stops the blade cold with a single hand. Leuniel is incredibly strong. Yet Bard toys with him like an amateur, with a casual flick of his blade. He sends his teammate crashing across the floor. The watching officer chuckles. And Bard takes the opportunity to establish dominance. The gap between years is absolute. Gray watches in disbelief, questioning how this beast was labeled the weakest. But then Bard smirks and drops a critical piece of information. His boast only holds true in a standard clash of life force. If Gray unleashes his signature, overpowered technique, he might get pulverized instantly. That terrifying god-tier strength is legendary, but while Bard respects what Gray did to dominate the previous tournament, he also understands the toll. That destructive power demands a heavy price, so he warns him to hold back during this raid. Gray quietly nods, knowing the consequences of unleashing it. Strength he won't be able to keep fighting. They agree to save it for absolute emergencies. It only if there is no other choice. With that settled, Bard starts laying out the plan. With only 30 minutes left before they teleport, he explains that since they know the enemy positions, splitting up is their best option. He tells each of them exactly where to go based on their unique fighting styles, without explaining much else. This leaves Leonhart questioning why Gray is being assigned to that specific sector, which is the area reserved for special designation criminals. In other words, Bard is sending him straight to the most dangerous part of the entire base, packed with incredibly powerful outlaws, including former academy students. Bard openly admits it. Gray is heading straight into the lion's den, but for good reason. If Bard's suspicions are correct, there is a monster lurking in that sector. Someone that neither he, Leonhart, nor Leuniel could ever defeat. If they try, they will die for sure. Gray is their only hope, which reminds him that people with truly monstrous strength exist in this world, fighters who can easily wipe out thousands of normal soldiers in seconds. Usually, these people become heroes who protect humanity. But when that raw power is turned to crime, they become special designation threats. Absolute monsters that a student stands zero chance against. Bard explains that even the absolute weakest criminal among them is far stronger than any supervisor. Teacher overseeing the younger students. This is exactly why they need Gray's unique power. He holds the only trump card that gives them a fighting chance if things go south. Leonhart still disagrees, arguing that against such strength, they should overwhelm them with numbers. That makes sense until Bard reminds him that against a beast like that, none of them would survive a single second. They would only get in the way and end up dying for nothing. When the power gap is that massive, numbers mean absolutely nothing. Humans fight humans and monsters fight monsters. Leon Hart raises another valid concern. Even if Gray wins, he will be so badly battered that he will need backup to escape. But Leonhart is not taking into account that if they stick together, the enemy will quickly surround and crush them. Their only real chance of survival is to scatter and keep moving forward constantly. Lunel suggests they move in pairs, but Bard shuts her down immediately. He is not asking for opinions. This is not about who has the rawest power, but sheer experience. This is their only shot. Gray thinks the plan is full of way too many holes, but with only 10 minutes remaining before kickoff, there is no time to argue. His best bet is to keep everyone calm and play along. Seeing that Gray has no objections, Lunel finally goes along with the plan. As for Leonhart, he is still incredibly doubtful, but Gray reassures him there is no other choice. Instead, he asks Leonhart to slip into medical and grab some potions, keeping them close for emergencies, wanting a reliable way to stay on his feet. If he ends up pushing his ability to the absolute limit, Leonhart agrees, promising to deliver them to him even if it costs his life. Meanwhile, inside the depths of the villain's hideout, two thugs are mopping the floor while casually discussing the horrific things they did to the last batch of captured slaves. Worst of all, they do not even talk about them as human beings, speaking as if they are merely disposable objects. Despite how incredibly twisted it sounds, their eyes light up with pure joy as they talk about how much they absolutely love playing with their new playthings. Fortunately, it does not take long before they hear strange noises echoing from deep inside the fortress. Suddenly, one of the thugs loses his head to a single, lightning-fast slash. Too fast, the other guy cannot even react before Leonhard appears right behind him, slices him clean in half. He heard everything. These men are absolute filth, just like the rumors claimed. Fortunately, he does not have to hold back at all against this trash with no civilians around. Bard reminds the team that they have full clearance to eliminate anyone they find inside the building. Stick to the plan. That is the only rule. Without another word, the mission officially begins and the four fighters split up. Gray charges straight down a corridor packed with hostile forces. They assume he is alone and try to threaten him, but then one cocky bandit steps up, claiming he will handle Gray. Personally, what nobody expected was for Gray to slice him clean in half. Mid-sentence at absolute warp speed. Honestly, you blink and you miss it. Gray quickly realizes these fighters are far weaker than expected, and he begins wondering if this is a cheap trick designed to make him lower his guard. But as the minutes pass and the scum keep dropping like flies, he knows they actually have a real chance to win. Meanwhile, the enemy forces notice this crazy kid in the uniform and realize this assault is far more dangerous than they initially thought. So, one of their leaders orders his squad to keep back because just like Bard warned, if they crowd together, they will just get slaughtered at once. Suddenly, one bandit tries to sneak up on Gray, but Gray thrusts his blade straight through the guy's mouth, pinning him instantly. That brutal move warns the rest that they need a better strategy. However, their sheer numbers make them think they can still win if they just overwhelm him. But even 10 against 1 with a mage backing them up, they cannot land a single strike. Gray dodges every ether bullet with effortless ease. The assault is so basic that he simply keeps advancing through the chaos. He closes the distance and rips the caster's chest open. Once again, he notes how pathetic they are for such a notorious syndicate. Part of him wonders if they are holding back, but the raw bloodlust in their eyes tells a different story. They genuinely want him dead. These guys move like seasoned killers. Each of them has probably taken down at least 10 lives, making their absolute lack of skill even more baffling. A few minutes pass and he has cleared out almost everyone. When the next wave arrives, the truth finally clicks. He was comparing these thugs to academy students. Honestly, even a weak first-year cadet would destroy these fools in seconds. So Gray focuses on pushing forward at maximum speed. At this rate, he thinks he can wrap this up. The only true threat is the special designation target who still has not shown his face. Eventually, Gray slays everyone except the leader. Total coward who immediately tries to bargain. Can you believe this guy's nerve? Gray isn't foolish enough to believe him, but he lets him speak to gather any useful information. The crying bastard offers him a position as one of their syndicate's elite enforcers. Hearing of this role for the first time, Gray demands details and the coward keeps rambling. He claims it is the best gig in the Blue Drinkers because their sole duty is hunting down the targets that normal grunts cannot stop. It also promises high pay, endless liquor, and any pleasure he desires, apparently. That is far better than anything the Academy can offer, and Gray is already strong enough already, but Gray knows it is a lie and asks what happens if he refuses. The man calmly replies that Gray can kill him, but he would not recommend it. If he dies, Gray dies too. He warns him that the elite enforcer tied to this academy actually made it to the 3rd year, and even back then was stronger than most teachers, so the choice is simple. Luxury or certain death. Without any hesitation, Gray says it is actually a very easy question. He chooses neither because he is going to kill this man and anyone else in his path. With that, he slices off the target's head and keeps moving. Walking down the hall, Gray remembers that warning. The special designation criminal is definitely hiding somewhere in this facility. The good thing is that the man said he, not they, so at least Gray knows there is only one. That changes things because splitting up was a mistake. Was not the best idea after all, if there were many strong enemies. Maybe, but since most are weak except for that one, they should have stayed together. Because of this, he wonders if there is any way to regroup with his teammates. Elsewhere, Bard is already busy questioning a captured criminal after wiping out everyone else in the area. He only wants one answer: the name of the special designation criminal hiding here. The man confesses it is Medu Bradley, the daughter of the teacher Gray killed some time ago. The criminal confirms there is no one else besides her, and once Bard gets his answer, he ends the man, expecting exactly this. This is just what he expected. In truth, he already knew about the single special criminal and split the group on purpose, not for maximum efficiency, but because the worst mistake in any group battle is dragging around useless dead weight. He split them up to handle separate sections alone without worrying about protecting anyone else. Bard never planned on risking his life for Gray or the others. If they die, he considers it acceptable collateral. He is not a traitor, just an incredibly selfish jerk who only looks out for number one. Right now, he only wants the special criminal to show up in Gray's sector. Unfortunately for him, that scheme completely blows up because at that exact moment, someone detonates the floor right beneath his feet. He leaps back just in time to face Medu, the exact person he hoped to avoid. Naturally, she notices he does not look surprised by her grand entrance. That means anyone who knows her location must perish. Bard calmly replies that he already took care of that. He only wants to know why she is here when all their map intel placed her in the opposite sector. Medu explains the maps were correct, but they failed to realize that she fully anticipated a surprise raid, so she kept moving around randomly to break their strategy. Looking at the sheer frustration on Bard's face, it clearly worked. She finds his reaction hilarious. Medu is a modified human engineered by Bradley himself, rumored to be one of the strongest students in the entire magic course, pitched against the weakest in the Grima class. This showdown feels like a terrible joke. Medu can sense it too. He is incredibly weak. She decides to end this immediately, unleashing a massive wave of pure dark energy. It almost swallows him whole, and that word almost is key. Bard keeps his cool, swinging his blade to unleash a massive wave of pure life force. The strike completely erases the spell, leaving Manu staring in disbelief because she has never seen Griema reach a level where it acts almost like genuine magic. Bard doesn't hesitate, charging forward immediately to close the gap. Unfortunately, Manu still has some deadly tricks left. Spilling a strange potion, she spreads it quickly across the floor, unleashing a thick magenta fog that fills the room. He cannot cancel this with his life force, and within seconds, it wraps around him completely, burning him. Alive, just like that, the young warrior collapses straight to the ground, his entire body horribly charred. Mia sighs. It is a shame to waste such a rare ingredient, but at least she can use his corpse to brew even more. What a wild season finale.